Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 3 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're talking all things waiver wire fantasy football, whether it's trade targets, all of the above. Anything fantasy football related that you have in mind, please be sure to go ahead, ask in the live stream chat. But if in fact you're going to ask a question, make sure you include your scoring format, your league format, all of that is going to help us, of course, smoothly transition throughout this entire live stream to try to help you set up yourself for success, not only for Week 3 and the upcoming matchups that we have with the Thursday night game in a couple days with the Miami Dolphins taking on the Buffalo Bills, but of course, the Sunday matchups, and hopefully for the remainder of the season in order to help you capture a 2025 fantasy football championship. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, quick couple reminders. Earlier today, we did drop my top 36 running back rankings for Week 3 of the 2025 season. So if you guys are looking for those rankings prior to the Thursday night matchup, be sure to go ahead and check those out. I'll also be talking about some waiver wires. We did post a waiver wire episode on Monday. There are very little changes that I would make in regards to potential pickups. I think the only other player that I did not include, or potentially two players that I did not include within that episode, that I may feel a little bit more confident regarding potentially kind of suggesting them, would be Woody Marks. In the event in which we do not see a Joe Mixon return for quite some time, Woody Marks did get himself more workload, and Dameon Pierce was a healthy scratch yesterday. So obviously it does provide more potential for upside in his circumstance. And then additionally, Christian Kirk. If that's somebody that is potentially available in your league, I wouldn't even put a waiver on him. He is someone that you could potentially pick up after waivers run, as he has yet to play this season, but from what we have seen from CJ Stroud in that offense, he is in desperate need of another receiving option, and we're hoping that Christian Kirk can be the answer to solve the strains of which that Texans offense has faced thus far this season. Okay, hope you guys are doing well. Let's get into answering any and all fantasy football questions. I do see a couple of you sent in questions via the super chat. I'll go ahead and answer those first and foremost. Abram begins with the first question of the day. It's more of like a statement. It says, I just traded Mahomes and Irving for Henry. Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, I think Henry and Irving, rest of season, I do prefer Derrick Henry. You're able to buy low on him. We have to understand that in a PPR scoring format, Derrick Henry is a 19 to 20 point fantasy point contributor every single week. And even though he had one, unfortunate circumstance of a week here in Week 2, for those of you who are able to potentially pick him up via a trade because of a panicking fantasy manager who may be 0-2, I mean, again, I think that's a great way to figure out and kind of navigate the trading system there. As to who you have besides Mahomes is certainly important, especially considering Mahomes has been great with his rushing upside as of late, which has kept him fantasy relevant. But I'm sure there are many of other available quarterbacks within the waiver wire conversation, potentially a Daniel Jones that may be able to pick up and play going forward in the event in which you do not have another quarterback on roster. Your follow-up, Abram, was, should I pick up Mason and drop DJ Moore? Yes. In the event in which you are playing in a league where Jordan Mason is still available, which, again, there are very few leagues in which that is the case. But in your circumstance, yes, I would absolutely tell you to pick up Mason and potentially even play him. Earlier today when I recorded my top 36 running back rankings video, obviously I was aware that Aaron Jones was not expected to play this week. Therefore, I put Jordan Mason as my number 13 running back. But I wasn't expecting him to be placed on the injured reserve, which of course will hold him out for the next 4 weeks, primarily because they have a Week 6 bye. Therefore, we will not see Aaron Jones until Week 7. So in the meanwhile, Jordan Mason, my goodness, is going to be very valuable. Now, again, this offense is going to have Carson Wentz. Some may say that this is actually an upgrade in comparison to one J.J. McCarthy. Carson Wentz is no stranger to a fast pass rush getting after him and him making plays after the pressure has already made its way to his chest. So hopefully Jordan Mason will be able to benefit in the coming weeks here. Hopefully all the fantasy pieces that revolve around the Minnesota Vikings, JJ, specifically Addison once he comes back, Hawkinson and Jordan Mason, will be just fine in the meanwhile. Thank you, Avram. Appreciate it. David Ports sends in a question. Thank you, David. I appreciate it, sir. Says in a full PPR, trade Lamar Jackson and Pacheco for Daniels, as in Jaden Daniels, and Chuba Hubbard. As of right now, I feel really comfortable doing so. Again, here's the thing. Jaden Daniels obviously dealing with a little bit of a sprain. So he's going to miss this week. He missed 2 games last season. Obviously, one of which he left early due to an injury. The other was a game in which, again, they really didn't even need him to get into the mix much. But ultimately, going forward, if we're talking about a full healthy Lamar and Daniels, along with a full healthy Pacheco and Chuba Hubbard, I'd rather have that Chuba Hubbard side, especially if I am in need of running back depth, which in the case of which you have Pacheco providing for your team, it looks like you may be in need of a running back. So Chuba Hubbard side would be the preferred. Thank you. Giovanni sends in a question. Thank you, Giovanni. I appreciate it. Says, how much fab on the Packers defense? I think it depends. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to probably mention over the course of today's live stream on multiple occasions. So in case there's a potential in which you do hear this, listen up, okay? Really quickly, just PSA, drop everything you're doing, stop whatever conversation you're in within Discord, just hear me out real quick. In the event in which you are wondering how much fab to spend, I think a really good kind of watermark or expectation will be to look in your league how much people were spending for streaming defenses last week, or potential other options, like how much did someone spend for Quentin Johnston? That could give us a lot of intel as to what you could, like, especially like people who lost those bids. Like, let's say somebody didn't get Quentin Johnston, but they put $19 down, right? 19 of their 100, 19% theoretically. If they didn't win that, then they're probably going to come back even stronger because of their desperation for a wide receiver pickup for someone like Wanda Robinson or Troy Franklin. So you may expect, okay, maybe instead of going for that 19, they'll go for the 2021 22% bid. I think what you have seen from your league mates in the past and their desperation for pickups will certainly give you a little bit of insight as to where they may end up traveling within the upcoming waiver period. Now, if you're playing in a league in which you have, waiver priority, it's completely different. That's just a crapshoot, which at that point, you're leaving it up to the fantasy gods, and of course, whether your league mates have jobs that hold them beyond a 9 to 5, and in fact, if they can't, potentially look at their fantasy league. But in the case of the Packers defense, obviously they're going to be elite for majority of the season. When I look at their upcoming schedule, obviously this week, it is the Cleveland Browns. That is something that we're 100% excited about. Then we have Micah Parsons returning to the Dallas Cowboys. Then we have the Packers taking on a backup like Jake Browning. Then the Cardinals, Steelers, Panthers. I would say that there's a very good likelihood that the Green Bay Packers could be a top 5 defense rest of the way. And at that point, if they're a set it and forget it kind of defense, I'm willing to legitimately spend upwards of 8 to 10 potentially. Now, I'm not willing to get to the point to where I'm like, again, 8 to 10, I think 8 is probably where I end up at, maybe even 7, because at that point, I'm always been someone that's going to continue to suggest starting streaming defenses. I do it every week in my own leagues. I'm not really too keen on like set it, forget it defenses, but in the case of the Packers, 8 to 10, I think is probably pretty bold, pretty aggressive, but will get the job done to secure that defense for the rest of the season. Now, in the event in which you look at your league's kind of contributions for defenses and you see like no one's bidding more than 2, 3, 4, put a 5 and a 6 and let it ride. You know what it is? When I say 8 to 10, I'm playing leagues where you have $200 fab dollars. So really that's like 4 to 5%. That's what I should have said. My apologies. Continuing on, we had a question from Tan Fam, who says the following. All right, Tan, what do we have here, brother? He says, do I drop Fields for Daniel Jones or Browning on the waivers? Yeah, at this point, you got to pick up Daniel Jones. I mean, again, Fields is probably someone that you can probably stash onto your IR in the event in which he misses due to the concussion protocol. I'd like to have Fields on roster the rest of the season as well, but Daniel Jones, in the event in which he's playing Tennessee this week, has himself an advantageous matchup. I would like to fire him up in the meanwhile for this upcoming matchup. Rebel Meat 17 sends in a question, says, concerned about Nico, Ladd, and or Drake London. Am I concerned? No. Look, here's the thing, guys. Weeks 1 and 2 of every season always has these like fantasy football casualties that do not perform up to their expectation. So what do I mean by that? I'm just going to specifically utilize the 2024 season as like an example, just so we're all on the same page as to like which players did not perform well early last year that at the end of it all still were high-end contributors. First and foremost, let's remember what Jamar Chase did last year, shall we? Jamar Chase from weeks 1 and 2, what did he do? Absolutely freaking nothing. Right? And yet he still finished as a number 1 overall wide receiver. Specifically, why is this? Okay. I'm so surprised that this link glitches out on me so often. Okay, so we change it here. Then we go here. Then we go here. Okay. So just to put it in perspective, in terms of total points scored from weeks 1 and 2, Jamar Chase was wide receiver 42 this time last year. Okay. Other wide receivers in that range. Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 37. Where did he finish? In the top 12. Okay, let's see who else is potentially in that realm of possibility. A.J. Brown this time last year, actually he got hurt. That's not even a good example. Jackson Smith and Jigba was wide receiver 27 last year, finished in the top 12. I mean, other wide receivers that were selected early, okay? Actually, that's probably the better example point. Other wide receivers that were selected early that still managed to deliver. I mean, CeeDee Lamb at this point was wide receiver 16. Where is Amon-Ra St. Brown was wide receiver 29 at this point last year. Continuing on, Drake London this time last year, who was a top 12 pick. He was wide receiver 38 in the first 2 weeks of the season. Again, a lot of players who may not have been, the greatest contributors early on last season that were high-end draft picks in 2024 still ended up delivering. So I'm not in a position to where I'm like, oh, I'm freaking out about it. No. Again, in due time, everything will settle itself. In the case of Nico Collins, trust me, he burned me $100 last night. Fantastic. Love to see it. 12 targets, or not even 12 targets. What was it? 9, 10? Let's see here. What did Nico Collins burn me yesterday? If I have to check again, just to really add insult to injury. 9 targets, 3 grabs, and a receiving touchdown. Thanks for the receiving touchdown, by the way, Nico. I'm not too worried about it. Drake London is going to be fine. Ladd is a little bit of a trickier situation. I think London and Nico are clearing away the number ones. Ladd McConkey is now in a situation to where there is so much comfort in spreading the ball out that that one is the sketchiest of the group. But again, he is a lesser pick because we spent a 3rd round draft capital rather than Nico and Drake, who were late first, early second. Jason Sommer sends in a question. Thank you, Jason. Says, hey, man, I'm in a Superflex league. My top waiver spot, okay? I have Drake May, Nix, Rattler, Browning on the waivers. Other skills players stink, okay? Hold or grab Browning because quarterback value. You should pick up Browning and you should drop Rattler. If Rattler is the potential drop here. Again, you don't theoretically have to drop him, but in terms of a Superflex value, Browning is more valuable than Rattler rest of the way. And once you get to May and, of course, Bo Nix experiencing their bye weeks, you're going to want a better option theoretically, and I think Browning will be able to suffice in that situation. So yeah, I would make that pickup. If anything, if you have another player on your team that is a non-factor that you can drop and have 4 quarterbacks, that's perfectly fine as well, because then at that point, the Joe Burrow manager is probably coming to ask you for a trade. And at that point, you can move Browning, keep the other 3 quarterbacks you have on roster, and at least acquire some sort of depth in terms of running back or wide receiver. Thank you. Abram sends in a follow-up. Says, I have Cameron Dicker. Should I pick up Moody? No, I don't want Jake Moody. No, thank you. I keep Cameron Dicker. Again, he is one of the most accurate kickers in fantasy, or in the NFL history, in fact. But in terms of fantasy purposes, I think he'll be fine. Don't worry about him. Ivan sends in a question. Says, trade Hill for JSN. If you can trade Tyreek Hill for JSN, you should have done it yesterday. Yes, absolutely make that trade. And, give him a firm handshake, a kiss, a hug, whatever you got to do. That is a steal if you're able to get JSN for Tyreek Hill. All right, let's hear. Jennifer sends in a question. Thank you, Jennifer. Says 16-team PPR, 2 flex trade, my Tillman for Tootin. Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt in my mind, I would rather have Bayshall Tootin rest of the season than Cedric Tillman. Without a doubt. Not even close. Doesn't really even matter what the rest of your team looks like. I think the value that Tootin is going to provide for the remainder of the season will outmatch what Cedric Tillman can theoretically provide. Again, you got to remember Tillman's touchdown from this week. A little bit of a happy accident of sorts, kind of like Keon Coleman in week 1. James Grover sends in a question, says, I'm currently 0-2, but combined 10 p.m. intake, but have the number 1 waiver this week. I'm not even sure what PM intake means, but okay. It says, I'm in the 10-team PPR, Dak, Bijan, Hampton, Chubb, JCM, Ladd, Tet, Harrison. We have Pickens. Rank best pick order between Stevenson, Tootin, Scatterboo, Daniel Jones, and Rashee Rice. Okay. So, okay, there's a lot of value to be had here. So this makes it a little bit of a trickier situation. Rashee Rice, considering 2 weeks have already surpassed, in a PPR scoring format, he is the most valuable of all of the names on this list. And it's not even remotely close in my mind. So Rashee Rice should be number 1. Then subsequently after, because you already have Dak, I'm not over the moon about trying to get the quarterback. I think I'd much rather try to secure running back depth to where at that point, I'm probably traveling down the Stevenson, Scatterboo, Tootin, then Daniel Jones path. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Colin Counts sends in a question. Thank you, Colin. Says, PPR, I lost Joe Burrow in a 2 quarterback league. Do I take Tua, Walker, BTJ, 4, Jonathan Taylor, and Zay Jones? Nope, not Zay Jones. Zay Flowers. Zay Jones is not playing. Actually, he does play for the Arizona Cardinals, but You guys remember Zay Jones? He actually was pretty decent one year for, I think it was the Raiders and the Jaguars. But anyway, Tua, Walker, BTJ for Jonathan Taylor and Zay Flowers. I mean, look, here's the thing. I don't love the prospect of having Tua Tagovailoa as one of my 2 starting quarterbacks for the remainder of the season. So in the event in which we can get something else, great. Because I think the value that you're getting as a whole, BTJ, Walker, Tua, I don't think it's a bad trade. Oh, you already have Fields and you already have Geno. I see. Okay. Look, in a 2 QB league, I think it's fair. I think it's legitimately a fair trade. But I would try to get somebody else except for Tua, legitimately. If you have Fields and Geno and you can fire them every week, what I'm doing in your position right now, no joke, Colin, is I would much rather keep what you have in the form of Jonathan Taylor, Zay Flowers, and I just go pick up Mariota and stream him this week until Fields comes back next week. And then when the time we get to, the potential of bye weeks comes around, then at that point we can discover the potential of going after a trade. Thank you. Sean K sends in a question, says Walker or Kyron PPR rest of season. I'd like to wait and see what the Corum/Kyron potential moving on forward mix looks like. Now, personally, I'm going to keep with Kyron in this situation because first and foremost, the Rams are a better offense. So that means that there's more potential for scoring touchdowns. And additionally, we're not going to have a blowout in which Kyron Williams is being donated a touchdown at the end of every game. So Kyron is going to be more valuable than Walker rest of the season. And again, I think the contributions of one Zach Charbonnet are going to be significantly more than anything that Blake Corum can theoretically present in the event in which Kyron stays healthy. So Kyron is the preferred there. Thank you. False Prophet sends in a question, says trade my DJ Moore and Travion Henderson for Debo and Javonte Williams. I mean, at this point, I'm not even joking. I've seen the light, okay? Javonte Williams, I mean, as someone who is a Jaden Blue truther for the entirety of August, I have had a come to the fantasy gods moment to where it's Javonte at this point. And based on what we are seeing from Deebo Samuel as well, as the primary slot receiving option, that offense that is littered with targets, I'll take this deal. Zen sends in a question. Thank you, Zen. I appreciate it. It says in a PPR 12 team, I'm currently 2-0. Do I give Bucky Irving and Ricky Pearsall for Hampton and Flowers? Okay. I feel like what you're giving and what you are receiving, I feel like you should be able to get more. But I'll take it. Here's the thing, though. You have to understand that if you're buying in on Hampton right now, guys, you are primarily buying in for what he's able to accomplish by the time we get to like week 5. Because it might continue to be slow treading. Like we might just be 8 to 10 points every single week until then. That might be the case. We might have that all season long. Who knows? But for now, I mean, look, I'm a Pearsall guy. As soon as Purdy comes back, maybe I don't. I'm looking at this objectively. I don't like the idea of giving up Bucky right now. I'll keep what you have. 2-0, keep it as is. I think Hampton will be better, but I think so will Pearsall. I'm going to keep it. I've gone back and forth on it. That's how you know it's like I don't even know what to do at this point because it's just I would have expected by now Hampton been so much better. So already right now I'm already doubting buying back into that at the rate at which I'm giving Bucky. Andrew Gonzalez sends in a question, says, would you trade Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston for Drake London? In a full PPR, my wider is consisting of Devontae Adams, Ladd McConkey, Pickens, Hunter, and Quentin Johnston. Here's the issue. You can't start Hunter henceforth. You can't. Pickens can start, but again, you have to have a game in which the Cowboys are scoring 40 points for him to be implicated for, any looks. So if you were to give away Ladd and Quentin Johnston, you'd basically just have London and Devontae Adams as the 1-2 combo. Pickens could theoretically be a flexible option within a high-scoring matchup, which this week theoretically can be that option. But I think in the long run, and having I'm okay with the trade. Having 2 Chargers on roster is incredibly difficult, especially when they're both receivers, because you don't want to ever make the mistake of starting the wrong one, and it seems like Quentin Johnston is the right one. As of late, you'd be selling high on him at this point to get the upgrade of London. I'm okay with it. I think it does hurt wide receiver depth if Hunter is not able to do much, but I'd assume making a 2-for-1 in this capacity, Andrew Gonzalez, maybe you can hit the waiver wire, pick up a Troy Franklin or Wan'Dale Robinson and just keep pushing forward. Mo Money sends in a question, says, let's see here, Mo, where are you? Where the heck is Mo Money's question? There it is. Says, buy low running back targets. I have Alvin Kamara, Connor, RJ Harvey, and Travion Henderson. So you basically have the two running backs that, again, would theoretically be the ultimate buy low candidates of Travion Henderson and RJ Harvey, who have done absolutely very little thus far in their NFL careers. In terms of other running backs that theoretically are quote unquote buy low, again, these are just going to be suggestions. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to 100% bring in a player of this value, because it just depends on what the manager of that team wants in exchange, feels about the player, etc. I legitimately think that JCM is a buy. Right now, please and thank you, give me JCM. If I can go out and I can get it, fantastic. I think with Eckler gone, it's going to open up a lot. I think Genty is a buy. I'm even at the point to where, yes, I'm willing to buy Hampton, but I need to buy him at his floor, like at the complete dirt floor level. Those are the three that I'm like, yeah, if I can get an opportunity of buying low on those players, yes, they're all rookie backs. You already have two of them, so you're probably not in the position, Mo Money, to really go after those kind of players. But those are the guys. JCM, Genty, Hampton, that are playing far less snaps, getting far less effective opportunities than we anticipated. I also would like to say, as someone who is the conductor of the Chase Brown hype train, let me remind you, I haven't stopped yet. Chase Brown was ranked in my top 12 this week. Even without Burrow, he is going to be relevant. Keep an eye for that. If you want to potentially go ahead and buy low on the potential of any Cincinnati Bengals, whether it be Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, I would tell you to do so. From what we have seen from Jake Browning in the past, he can support the alternative options within the offense. It's not to say that every single one are going to score every single week, but there's still going to be effective enough options to where you can buy him low. Chase Brown currently sitting as RB25, averaging nearly, says 9.9 fantasy points per game. Not enough. You can definitely go ahead and buy low on that kind of a player as well. LZ7 sends in a question, says PPR 2 flex league. Okay, let's see what you have here, LZ. Says I'm in an 8-team 1-1 record. Okay. Baker, Bucky, Omarion Hampton, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Kincaid, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Keon Coleman, RJ Harvey, Gordon, Judkins, Sutton, Loveland, Mixon. Waivers are Tootin, Ramon. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. Immediately fooling away. Ollie Gordon dropped. Colston Loveland dropped. Dalton Kincaid dropped. All three of those off my roster here, LZ. Then I'm going to immediately be picking up Ramondre, Jawan Johnson, and Bayshaw Tootin. Please and thank you. That's how I go about it. Appreciate it. In the event in which you're not able to get Jawan Johnson, I'm happy with getting Ferguson next. Marion Garcia sends in a question, says, thoughts? Genty and Warren for Chuba, Swift, and Wan'Dale Robinson. I think it's really... Okay, here's the thing. I'd rather have the Genty Warren side as of right now. I think Warren is just as valuable as Swift. I think Genty will be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than Chuba Hubbard in the not too long future. Wan'Dale Robinson, I guess, could be the deal breaker in this when we're comparing the two, it could be the deciding factor. But is Wan'Dale Robinson going to start for you every single week? If you're playing in a full PPR, then sure, I think he could be a contributing factor every week, but he's not going to go for 142 and a touchdown every week. That's fool's gold if you're thinking that's going to be the case. Obviously, they're going to air the ball out a little bit more. His average depth of target is going to be significantly higher than where it was last season. But again, you go back to his week one production, that's more in line to what he is going to be able to average produce. So I'd still rather have that Genty side as of right now. Lelexo sends in a question, I think attached to it. Lelexo, if you can in the future, make sure that you go ahead and include your question attached to the message. Please, if you can, also retype in your question as of right now so that I can check the live chat and see if it's there. Thank you. Abram sends in a follow-up, says pick up May, Prescott, or Fields in a PPR. I mean, if we're talking about this upcoming week specifically, I don't think Fields is playing. So you're going to probably be able to just leave him on the waivers and not even touch him and get him after the fact. And maybe even once he is designated out, you can throw him on your IR. But if we're talking about the New England Patriots taking on Pittsburgh, or of course playing Prescott against Chicago, I'd rather play Prescott this week against Chicago. Thank you. Nick Dunham sends in a question. Says, PPR, who for rest of season? I have Fields, Jones, or May. As of right now, you know that they're all really okay. The reason why they're all solid options, obviously, is because they all have rushing upside. In the event in which Fields is healthy, he's great. But for right now, you should probably just go pick up, as of this moment, Daniel Jones. Because in comparison to May, I think the team that surrounds Daniel Jones puts him in a better position to succeed. I think the coaching staff also does the same. So Jones is my suggestion to pick up, play him, leave Fields on your IR, and if you can, let's see where Jones can take us. Denon sends in a question, says, I know I asked this on Discord, but what do you think in the target situation of Ladd? And do you think Odunze is someone to start confidently now? Yeah, I mean, look, Odunze is pretty much this year's JSN, right? We talked about it this offseason. When you are a first-round selected wide receiver, but especially in the case of Odunze, a former top 10 selected wide receiver, you are going to be fantasy relevant one way or another. It's just the history of top 10 selected wide receivers. There's too much backing the idea of these players being far too talented, and they're going to get their opportunity. So Odunze at this point, yes, he's a blind start every single week. In a 3 wide receiver, 2 wide receiver league, throw him in there, blindly start him. Whether it's flex or wide receiver 3, doesn't matter. Now, in regards to Ladd McConkey, obviously, like I mentioned a little bit earlier when I was talking about him and Quentin Johnston, and somebody was asking if I'm worried about Nico Collins. Yeah, Ladd McConkey's a little bit more worrisome, primarily because, again, touchdowns aren't going to be as consistent. The target opportunity is not going to be as consistent. So when both of those have been diminishing, it does make him a far lesser option, which certainly is a tough one. Anthony Marr says, greetings and salutations. Happy birthday. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Anthony. Let me see what you have here. All right, so Anthony Marr. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's go to the live chat here real quick. Again, for those of you who are joining us on this wonderful Tuesday, I hope you guys are doing well. Again, I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can over the course of today's live stream. Again, if you guys want priority to get your questions answered almost immediately, well, not almost immediately. Obviously, there's a little bit of a backlog, but if you guys want to support the channel and get those questions answered, the super chat is always available. And of course, make sure you include your scoring format. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Where's Lulexel? Says, in a 12-team league, should I trade Dobbins and Igbuka for Genti and Shaheed? That's an interesting question. My running backs are Gibbs, Tootin, Jones. All right, so you would theoretically, and then your wide receivers are Neighbors, Nico, Odunze, Pearsall, and Jennings. Look, here's the thing about Rashid Shaheed. I don't believe that Rashid Shaheed is going to be someone that we get to a point to where we're like blindly starting him every week unless Olave is going to miss a significant volume of time. To which in this circumstance, it becomes a Dobbins and Igbuka that are both contributing to your starting lineup for Genti. When I look at this roster, you have Neighbors, Nico, Odunze. You can afford to make this trade. Would I prefer to go after somebody else? Yes. If I had Dobbins and Igbuka, I would hope that I would get another running back that is better than Genti in this circumstance. But in the case in which you cannot buy in on, alternative options. When I say alternative options, I'm specifically talking about top tier running backs in the form of like Achans and Derrick Henrys and all this kind of jazz. If you're not able to buy in on that, based on the fact that J.K. Dobbins is averaging 15 points per game this season, and Igbuka's, following suit, if you're not able to buy in on both of those, you can afford it, but I don't think you need to make the move. I don't see it as being a necessity at this point. All right, let's see here. Anthony Marr, where are you at, my man? Anthony, you're going to have to retype in your question. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'll come back and I'll answer your question in just a moment. Just want to catch up on some of the other questions that were sent in. Appreciate it. All right, we continue on. We had a question that came in from Nick Lothert, who says, my bench consists of Henderson, Bill, Charbonnet, Hunter, Keenan Allen, and Fannin. Who are you dropping for a quarterback as a Jaden Daniels owner? Okay, so as of right now, I am not dropping anybody. What you are doing is you're waiting until Jaden Daniels is designated out. Then at that point, you are picking up your backup quarterback. Until then, you cannot drop any of these options unless you're playing in a smaller league and unless you have unless Fannin is never going to actually play for you. That's the only time you would ever drop him in this circumstance. Otherwise, everybody is, I think, a little bit too valuable to just outright drop. So my suggestion will be to wait. Don't put in any waivers. Move up the priority. Keep your fab. and pick up Mariota when the time comes, and or pick up another alternative option later on this week once Jaden Daniels is designated out, and you can put him on the out list and then go about it. Otherwise, if you're not able to do something of that sort and you do have a stud tight end in the form of someone like, Andrew, I've got Tyler Warren already. All right, well then if you don't need Fannin, then I guess that would theoretically be the drop. Otherwise, I'm trying to wait for JD to go out and then put him on IR. Matt JB1 sends it a question, says, do I drop Brian Robinson Jr. for Scadaboo, Tootin, or Benson? Yeah. Look, here's the thing. If you're a Christian McCaffrey manager, I think there is an argument to be made in terms of potentially keeping Brian Robinson, because if we're talking about Scadaboo and Tootin, like if Christian McCaffrey was to go down, am I playing Scadaboo over Brian Robinson Jr.? Absolutely not. But in the same vein, like if Scadaboo is going to be able to contribute to your team immediately and play in your flex or your RB2 position on a weekly basis, then yes, the move is probably to make the pivot there and pick up a Scadaboo and henceforth continue on. Now, I also think that if you're not able to get him, Tootin is also a great pickup for the long-term goal of potentially winning a championship, as by the time we get to week 8 and on, he may be in the mix and just as valuable as a Scadaboo at that point. Sean sends in a question, says in a full PPR, I have Genty, Pollard, Sampson. Can you rank waiver ads between Ramondre, Scadaboo, Benson, Tootin? Okay. And how many should I add given my lack of running backs? How many should I add? Okay, so look, Ramondre should be probably number 1, Scadaboo 2, Tootin 3, Benson 4. Sampson's a drop. So if that's the immediate drop, then the question becomes, Sean, how many other open roster spots do you have? In the event in which you can drop a backup tight end, a backup quarterback, a backup receiver, and they're not going to hurt in terms of potentially dropping those players, I would legitimately try to pick up all 3, Ramondre, Scadaboo, and Tootin, 1, 2, 3, if you can. Thank you. Dylan Smith sends in a question, says, what's up, Andrew? I traded Kyron and Tedero McMillan and McBride for Saquon, Kittle, and Pickens. PPR thoughts. That's really sketchy. Okay, here's my only concern. McBride is going to be, when it's all said and done, a top 3 tight end, right? Once Kittle comes back, he'll be able to contest in that range, hopefully. But again, a hamstring injury at his age, it's a little bit more difficult. Saquon's great, but the question is, can Tet McMillan versus Pickens be an even play going forward? In the event in which, because again, this is pretty much like a long-term play, you're hoping that once Kittle returns, he'll be solid. Here says, I need to also grab Ferguson or Ertz off waivers. Okay, so in the events in which that is the case, I'm picking up Ferguson. I am firing up, and we'll just see how this goes. But look, here's the thing. At that point, we have to start 2 Cowboys, which I don't love, but Ferguson's the number 2 of that offense. Ertz is very much so relying on touchdowns as of late. I think Terry McLaurin is going to be able to see a couple of those, and so will JCM in the not-so-distant future. So Ertz will diminish his value in sure time, but Ferguson is the pickup. I don't mind the trade. I think it's very much so risky on Pickens has to deliver, like legitimately has to be a top 24 guy rest of the way. Keloid sends in a question, says PPR running backs, Kyron, Henderson, Chubb. Okay, pretty good options there. When I say pretty good options, I mean we might be in trouble. Panic and trade, Chase or Josh Allen to try to improve running backs. I have DK, Ridley, Johnston, Hunter, Austin, Tyler Warren, and Juwan Johnson. Look, at this point, considering what you have on roster, yeah, we're in a really rough spot. I'm not moving Chase. But in terms of improving RB2, that's probably a priority. To how we accomplish that, probably taking a tight end, probably taking, maybe even a wide receiver here, like Quentin Johnston, and trying to go get some running back depth. Because we can't trust starting Hendo for a while. And Chubb, shoot. If he doesn't score that touchdown yesterday, we got a 4-point player on our starting lineup. So I'm not panic trading Josh Allen or Chase just yet. I would try to utilize other assets on roster, specifically tight end and wide receiver, to try to go and address running back. As to who we're going after, like I've mentioned before, if we can buy low on prospects like JCM, which should be a lesser potential investment than someone like Genty, I would like to go down that path and try to explore it if you can accomplish that. Thank you, Keloid. Abide Los Angeles says, trade away Lad for BTJ. Yes, immediately. Done. Give me BTJ 10 times out of 10. Or Lad for Roma Dunze. No. Give me BTJ. Thank you. Emily Doyle sends in a question, says, should I drop RJ Harvey for Javonte Williams or wait for... Yes, no. Pick up Javonte Williams without a doubt in my mind. Also, I'm trying to pick up Seattle's defense. Great. That's fantastic. Is the Lions defense good enough to keep on bench? No. I don't think you should ever roster a second defense on your team, ever. No. So I would drop the Lions. I'd pick up Seattle, fire them up against New Orleans this week. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. The S-Box sends in a question, says in a full PPR, I'm considering moving off of Judy. Okay, that's fine. Says, what could I reasonably get in a potential trade involving him? Well, here's the thing. You have to find somebody that truly wants Jerry Jeudy, which off of this most recent performance, I don't think you're going to find very many people that are interested in him unless they rostered him last year. So legitimately, the way that I go about this S-Box is I go into your league's history, I find who had Jeudy on roster last season, and I go and ask them, hey, you interested in Jeudy? Because that would be legitimately the only player that probably has a positive correlation with Jeudy to anything fantasy related. And then at that point, try to make the move and try to get anything off their roster in which you're able to. So somebody offered me Goddard for him week 1. Yeah, you don't want Goddard. He's injured. Not interested. But that's my initial advice, because otherwise I think it's going to be really difficult to sell him unless he goes for a pop-off performance here in the near future, which Green Bay doesn't look like it's going to be one. Versace sends in a question. Says, is Mark Andrews droppable for Jake Ferguson? Theoretically speaking, yes, especially if you play in a full PPR. Mando sends in a question. Says, JD owner, but Stevenson's on the waivers. Prioritize quarterback? No, I would prioritize running back here. In the case in which Stevenson can be a weekly starter for the remainder of the season, theoretically speaking, whether it is as an RB3, potential flexible option, it doesn't matter. The value that he provides on a weekly basis in comparison to a quarterback in a 1 QB league, when Jaden Daniels is only going to theoretically miss 1 to 2 games here, I think Stevenson is the better pickup in prioritization for long-term purposes. I don't mind picking up Mariota and firing him up. Again, guys, if I have to remind you, Mariota last season, in the absence of Jaden Daniels, was a more than serviceable fantasy asset. He was somebody that actually was averaging more points per game than majority of the league in the games in which he was a full starter. May I remind you, week 7 of last season, in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, might I add, 19.6. Then in week 18 against the Dallas Cowboys, 26.0. Mariota in these games, goodness gracious. He had a 78% passing completion percentage in one game and an 83% passing completion percentage in the other. 2 touchdowns minimum through the air. And in these games, 34 rushing yards, no touchdowns, 56 rushing yards, and a touchdown. So prioritize running back. Gio Ortiz says, WTF do we do with Hampton? I know it's week 3, but man, yeah, I know. I hear you. Listen. Trust me, as someone who is, this is what I'll just say, guys. I understand that it seems bleak because it's happening in the now, and it seems like, oh my God, I've lost my season. I wasted my 3rd round pick on Omarion Hampton. I did not see this coming. He's killing me. I understand that. Trust me, I have lived it. It is not something that in the long term, once we get to week 14, will you even remember. Again, we've seen multiple occasions year over year in which running backs to start a season do absolutely nothing, and then next thing you know, they're the top running back in the league. Like, to give you a specific example of this, when we travel back to 2022, because I like to give this example often, because quite frankly, because he's also been a Charger in the past. Austin Eckler, 2022, finished as RB1 that season, okay? For the first 3 games of the season, he was legitimately, weeks 1 through 3, Austin Eckler finished as, let's see here. He was RB 20 overall throughout that span of time. Okay. He was behind guys like Miles Sanders that year in the first 3 weeks of the season, averaging 10 points per game. Now I understand. You look at what Hampton's done. He's not even close to it, Andrew. I get it. But what I'm just trying to explain, because Eckler was a 1st round pick of that year anyway. What I'm trying to explain is top tier talent, whenever you go into a buzzsaw of a matchup, maybe they're not going to have early great weeks, but in due time, give it some time, and eventually they'll start to blossom into the player that we anticipate them to be. Now, I understand that there are going to be situations this season specifically where you're going to invest in a player and they're never going to blossom. And that's just the name of the game. We are playing the risk of it all. Let's see here. Cody says, should I flex Pearsall, DJ Moore, or Scatterbo in a 12-man half PPR? I also lost Burrow. Should I start Lawrence or Browning? Lawrence this week plays against, if I'm not mistaken, goodness gracious, why am I forgetting? Are they not playing against... They're playing against Houston? Oh, gosh. I think he'll throw 3 picks this week, I'm going to be honest. In this circumstance, do I want to play Lawrence or do I want to play Browning? For right now, I'll lean towards Lawrence, even though I could find myself suggesting Browning. But for right now, I'll just stick to Lawrence. As for your receivers, running backs, whoever I'm playing in the flex as of this moment for this week, purely dependent on whether or not Brock Purdy's back. If Purdy's back, give me Pearsall. If he is not, at that point, I'd probably just end up with Scatterboo in my flex. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Steven, who says, I needed an RB2. I traded Judkins and Smith for Dobbins. Okay, that works. I have Achane. My wide receivers are Puka and Rome Odunze. My flex is T-Mac. Bench is Hendy, Hampton, Sharps, and Rice. Good trade. I mean, look, at this point, considering your necessity for running back, because, again, you needed an immediate contributor, it's fine. Like, Devontae Smith in the long run, you're not going to even worry about him because you'll have Rashee Rice. And so it's basically just a matter of, like, can Dobbins outproduce Judkins, to which I believe that will be the case. Ulysses sends in a question. He says, trade Ertz and Kenneth Walker for McBride and Waddle. Here's the issue with... No, I wouldn't. Here's the issue that I have. I don't know if Waddle is somebody that I want to have on roster unless they're trading away Tyreek Hill from the Dolphins organization in the short-term future. Waddle's already dealing with that shoulder injury that is continuing to bug him every single week. He's questionable. He is always in is he going to play? Is he not already this season? And he's always had that for the last couple of years, and it has been disastrous. So I wouldn't be surprised if a re-aggravation leads to a potential missing time here early on in the season, especially as they're trending towards an 0-3 start. So no, I'd rather just keep what you have with Walker going forward. Andrew Pacina sends in a question. Says Tootin or Stevenson or Daniel Jones. My quarterback is Dak right now in a full PPR number 1 waiver. That's a really good, interesting question. Also in another league, Wando Robinson or Troy Franklin. I have Neighbors. Okay, Wando or Franklin, when you have Neighbors, becomes a little bit of a tricky thing. Do I want to start 2 Giants wide receivers? Oh, man. Do I want to start 2 Giants receivers? Yeah, I would still rather have Wando Robinson than Troy Franklin, still, in a PPR. Because I know he's going to get himself a very consistent target volume because I've seen it already within this offense. So I'm basically just trusting the head coach and the offensive play caller that because they're the same, that they're going to get Wando in the mix. So I'm fine with it. Now, as for your previous question, I'll just take Stevenson there. Again, I'm always going to prioritize that running back if I can get one that is going to be a contributor going forward at a very solid base. Giggity Goo 52 sends in a question. Says, I'm in an 18 full PPR. I'm 2-0. Trade Keenan Allen and Ricky Pearsall for Rashee Rice. Trade BTJ for Odunze. I'm not trading BTJ for Odunze. I don't know if I've gotten to that position yet. As for the Keenan Allen and Pearsall for Rashee Rice, in an 8-team league, you can afford it. So you should. I mean, might as well. Because once you get once you get Rashee Rice in the mix, he's going to be like a 16 to 20 point contributor. Because you're in an 8-team league, it's acceptable. Revis Island Travis, a travel agent, what a name, says, I'm in a 12-team half PPR. I have the number 1 waiver slot. Do I use it on someone like Ertz, Daniel Jones, or the Packers defense? No, I would not use it at all this week, in fact. Yeah, I mean, looking at your team, it says, or wait for a big injury. I have Fields and Joku Broncos defense. No, I legitimately wouldn't use it. I think the options in which you are getting here are not significant enough to where I am willing to utilize that number 1 waiver slot. Now, if you're someone who is going to be streaming defense every single week for the remainder of the season, or you're going to always be hitting the waivers consistently every single week, then you can abandon number 1 waiver priority. But at this point, I'd rather just go trying to potentially trade or potentially just picking up scraps off the waivers. Thank you. Abdi sends in a question. Says, I'm in a 14-team 3 wide receiver PPR. I traded Chase Brown for London. Okay, that's fine. Running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Tootin, Harvey. Okay, that really is not good, though. Wide receivers are T-Mac, Judy Worthy, Quentin Johnston, Kirk. Second, okay, so I don't love that trade. I think you really are hurting at running back depth now, for sure, because you have to start Tootin like weekly now. Second league, 12-team league, full PPR. I traded Igbuka and Kraft for Rome Odunze and Javante. That's a better trade. The first one, not in love with, because again, primarily, your RB2 now is Tootin, henceforth. Not in love with that idea. Heavy CMC sends in a question. Heavy, long time no see, man. Hope you're doing well. Says full PPR, Superflex League. What are your thoughts on Daniel Jones' rest of season? I mean, at this point, even if he is to diminish in terms of his value slightly, he is still enough of a value point to where, because of the rushing upside he provides, you got to remember, like last season, last season Joe Flacco was serviceable. The year before that, Gardner Minshew was serviceable. Now that you add rushing upside on top of that kind of a performance level, to where you're getting a quarterback that is just going to consistently be able to score or at least get in the mix of rushing touchdown or rushing yardage upside, it's far too valuable to kind of just ignore at this point. Having faced a Broncos defense has now committed me to like, yeah, he's legit. It's no more questions. Thank you. It's just like I have no doubt in my mind he'll be solid. Now there are going to be up and down weeks like every quarterback faces, but it's fine. So at this point, it says, I trust your assessments versus upcoming defenses he will face. My other quarterbacks are Purdy, Kyler, Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, or Jackson Dart. I mean, in the short term here, let's see what the Colts are facing. I mean, they have the Tennessee Titans, they have the Rams, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Titans. When I look at those upcoming matchups, the Rams and the Chargers are the toughest matchups by far and away. Nothing else in that group scares me. Again, I'd be in the position to where I'm very comfortable picking him up. With Purdy dealing with an injury and Kyler Murray being a lesser option because really he just doesn't, there's not enough weapons around him. Daniel Jones, Purdy are the top two options there. And I'm specifically mentioning Daniel Jones first and foremost because he's not dealing with a potential foot injury here. Chris R sends out a question, says PPR, drop more for Alick or Troy? As in DJ Moore? No, I couldn't. Personally, against my religion, can't drop DJ Moore. I appreciate the request or the potential of it, but I would try to find some other way in which we go about that. Vo Innocent sends in a question. Says, drop Caleb Williams for Daniel Jones. I have Knicks as my starter. You know, the thing is, Caleb Williams is still good. Like, it's not like Caleb is a problem. Does he, is he the best quarterback in real life? No. But can he at least contribute for fantasy purposes? Hell yeah. Like he's been great so far in terms of 24 and 17. Bo Nix will be better than him. Will Daniel Jones be better than him? I'm okay with the idea of swapping the Jones there because I don't think anybody in your league is going to like immediately pick up Caleb in the short term here. But I mean, I could see very easily Caleb Williams outscoring him rest of season. But they need something to click. That's the issue. But I don't mind the fact that, again, Chicago sucks. I'm okay with that because, again, negative game scripts are implied. But if you wanted to make that swap, go pick up Daniel Jones. I don't have an issue with it. They're going to be closely ranked rest of the season for me anyway. But if I was to give you like a designation, I would still stick with Caleb. Nick LaRosa sends in a question. Says, trade away ETN and Pearsall for Javonte. No, at that point, ETN's valuable enough to where I can just... They're comparable. I'm okay with it. Says, or am I giving up too much? I think you're giving too much. Ibrahim sends in a question, says, is Debo Washington's number one receiver? I mean, based on what he has seen in terms of target opportunity share, yeah, it's clear in a way that he is. And why are you so low on Montgomery? Him and Gibbs' workload are not too far apart. Yeah, here's the thing. Their workload is not too far apart, but what Montgomery needs is touchdowns, purely. I don't have to worry about Gibbs having to score touchdowns because Gibbs is a more efficient runner and the better receiving threat within the overall opportunity share of routes ran. So whenever you're getting the greater exposure to snaps, routes ran, opportunities in terms of rushing attempts, like that it favors Gibbs in that capacity, and it leaves Montgomery on the island of if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's in trouble. That's where we sit. Like very seldom last season, if we go back to just pulling it up, just for the sake of clarity on the matter. Let's go find this. Okay. So when we go back to last season in specific with Mr. David Montgomery, let's go pull this up. Let's pull it for a half PPR and let's reference this. Okay. So when we go back to last season in games in which he does not score a touchdown, right? We have a Minnesota game in which he scores 6.5 points, right? That's the trouble because again, if you don't score, you don't get to break that double-digit points, right? And there's another game in which he has 11, but he has 3 receptions and an incredible volume of rushing attempts, 17 total. If he's able to break 17 rushing attempts in the not too distant future, great, fantastic. But I don't see him posturing for that in a Baltimore Ravens matchup. Then we have the potential which he doesn't score a touchdown there. Actually, no, he scored a receiving touchdown there. And then there's that game where he scores 5.5. Again, a lot of these games, like 14 for 51, 3 for 87, 12 for 32, 9 for 33. Okay, those are his rushing attempts and rushing yardage. But he accompanies all of those performances with a rushing touchdown. If he doesn't score, he becomes sketchy. That is all I'm saying. That's why I have him where I do. Otherwise, again, solid, flexible option in the event in which he scores a touchdown. Matt Glore sends in a question. Says 2 questions in the live chat. Thanks for all. Okay, thank you. And then we had Luke C with question in the chat. Okay. I think Anthony Moore, I probably forgot to answer your question earlier. I'll try to find that right now. Again, for those of you joining us this afternoon, this morning, goodness. Hey, maybe morning where you're at, who knows? For those of you joining us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, we were trying to answer any and all questions in regards to fantasy football. I've been here for the last, I don't know, probably almost 50 minutes here, but we'll be here for probably another hour minimum, because again, there's a lot of you, and I'm sure many of you have questions to ask. So be patient. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We continue on by going into the live chat. Let's see if we can find Matt Glore, Luke C, and Anthony Marr. Okay, if you guys hear me, those three names, please type in your question in the live chat so I can check it out. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Where's Anthony Marr at? Anthony Marr says, Andrew, I sent chat, never answered question. Yeah, I don't see your question, brother. You gotta have to type it in the chat. Thank you, man. Okay, I see it now. Thank you, Anthony. Says in a half PPR Superflex league, I'm in a 10 team. I'm starting Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, Marvin Harrison Jr. Flex, as in my super flex, is Mahomes. Okay, Hollywood Brown's my bench with Judy, RJ Harvey, Fannin, JCM, Lawrence, Judkins. Okay, so there's the context. Now, what is the question in its entirety? It says, thinking about trading Mahomes/Swift for J.K. Dobbins/Barkley, Bryce, and Daniel Jones. Okay, so that sounds good. If you can get Barkley and Daniel Jones, I'll make the deal. Yes, easily. Thank you very much. Make the move, legitimately. If you can get Barkley in that deal, it is a instantly I would accept it. And as a commissioner, I would think there's somebody's colluding there, but I would make the move. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. Okay, we continue on. Let's see, where is Matt Glore? Let's see if Matt is in this live chat here somewhere. Okay, Matt, I don't see you in the chat. Let's see if Luke C is in the question. Luke, you here? Okay, there you go. Luke says PPR. Question number 1. Pick Matthew Golden, Troy Franklin, or Wanda Robinson. Okay. Week 3 and rest of season. I mean, as of right now, it's probably Wandell, Troy Franklin, Matthew Golden in that exact order. And then it says, yeah, and that is this week, and that is rest of season for right now. It says, I have quarterbacks Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy. Should I drop Purdy or Golden for dimes? Yeah, I would drop Golden for dimes, at least right now. But honestly, do you need Purdy rest of season? No, I honestly, at this point, I'd probably drop them both unless you can leave Purdy in your IR spot. It says question number 3, dimes or Trevor Lawrence rest of season. I'd rather have dimes, legitimately. Drop Njoku for Ertz, yes. Lad McConkey for Hampton, if you need running back depth and you have enough wide receiver depth to sustain, sure. Thank you. Okay, we took care of that. Let me see if Matt Glore sent in a follow-up. Nothing from Glore. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll swing back in the hopes that he is going to swing back here. Until then, let's continue on, shall we? Where are we at? We had a question that came in from Bed Bosch. Bed, hope you're doing well. It says in a half PPR 12-team league, should I drop Mims and Thornton for some luxury handcuffs, a.k.a. Corum, Giddens, and Monungai? As of yes. I don't see myself ever starting Thornton or Mims unless they give me like 4 consecutive weeks of, production. That's the thing. Like, these are players that are very much so volatile. So yes, I would rather have like Corum and Giddens, legitimately. And I'm okay keeping Mims for another week here alongside a Corum. And then, but yeah, Thornton should go. Abram sends in a question, says Travion Henderson or Pollard in a half PPR. If we're talking about this week, I'd rather have Pollard. If we're talking about rest of season, I'd really have to evaluate that based on what I end up seeing from Spears. But it may even still be Pollard at that point. It just depends on how that backfield for New England is going to kind of divvy out, considering, Antonio Gibson is getting as much of a run of things there in New England. Pat, sends in a question. Says likely or Okonkwo. If we're talking about picking up players, I'd rather have a likely on roster. It says Bill Shakir Aomanor, or more like Aomanor, which I don't like how they pronounce that name, but okay. Or Renfro. It's Bill. Bill 100% of the time. Thank you. Emmanuel C says, Andrew, my wide receivers are JSN, Sutton, Ridley, Pearsall. My running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Achane, Jacobs, Connor, and Tootin. Do I trade Connor for AJ Brown or what wide receiver? No, yes, absolutely. I'm okay with that. But look, here's the thing. It's only because you can afford to do it with such ease. I mean, again, you have Achane, CMC, and Jacobs. So Connor is really an irrelevant value point to you at this point. Because really, you're just so set up for success that's beautiful. Now, if you can somehow, some way trade Connor for BTJ, Nico Collins, London before you get AJ Brown, then yes, I would go and I would travel that path first and foremost. But otherwise, if AJ Brown's the best you can get in return, that's beautiful. I'll take that, Emmanuel. Cairo says, thoughts on Jordan Mason? That's another one of these buy lows, guys. AJ Brown for sure. Cairo says, thoughts on Jordan Mason for Quentin Johnston? Well, look here. Okay, here's the thing. I don't think that Quentin Johnston scoring touchdowns every week rest of season. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask in regards to the potential of Quentin Johnston. I think eventually it's going to probably tap dry. It doesn't mean that Quentin Johnston can't score 10 touchdowns this year. He's already scored 3, right? So he's probably going to finish with something close to whatever he did last season in terms of total touchdowns, 8 to 10. And in the event of which we're talking about Quentin Johnston versus Jordan Mason, I legitimately would rather have Jordan Mason. Because if we're going to have Aaron Jones missing the next 4 weeks and Jordan Mason plays out of his effing mind, he becomes the franchise runner for the remainder of this season. And he becomes the clear and away number 1 to where Aaron Jones is playing off of him. So when Jordan Mason needs a breather, Aaron Jones comes in. When Jordan Mason needs to, whenever they need a goal line attempt, it's going to be Jordan Mason. It's only really going to be on that pass blocking scenarios where Aaron Jones will come in henceforth. So yeah, I'd rather have Jordan Mason the rest of the way because the door is now open for him to clear in a way, be the RB1 of this team, and maybe even finish as an RB1 for fantasy if they can get healthy sooner rather than later. Isaac K says, was offered Henderson for Charbonnet. Interesting. My running backs are Bucky, K9 Swift, Benson, and Harvey. Thoughts? Okay, so here's the thing. If you get rid of Charbonnet and something happens to Kenneth Walker, you are theoretically losing a lot of potential value there. So even though Henderson on his own can provide value of a starter, it makes it a little bit sketchy because I want to make sure I have all of Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker settled on my team. So regardless of who goes down with an injury, theoretically speaking, you are able to at least maintain all of the value of the backfield, which we have seen thus far this season consists of a combination. I mean, this most recent week, what is it? Kenneth Walker had 13 attempts and Charbonnet had 15. That's 28 effing rushing attempts. If one of these two goes down, they're getting 25 carries and they're taking over the league. So I'd like not to make a trade to where I'm spreading or splitting them. If the team you're trading with has another running back and they want to take K9 and Charbonnet, great. Otherwise, I don't think I make the split here. Lee Flores. I mean, look, in terms of like long-term value, maybe Hendo pulls away from the job, but so far it's not looking great. Lee Flores says in a half PPR, I'm in a running back crisis, which consists of Walker, Charbonnet, Harvey, and Caleb Johnson. Yeah, Caleb Johnson can be dropped, by the way. Should I consider trading McBride for an RB1? Johnny Smith is my backup. Yeah. If you are trading and you only have Johnny Smith as a backup and nobody is on the waivers that is a viable option within a top 16 tight end capacity in comparison to like guys that I mentioned on yesterday, or not last week. Yeah, not yesterday, last week's tight end rankings video. If there's no like Juwan Johnson, Ertz, Fannons, Ferguson's, if those players are not available readily and Johnny Smith has to be your immediate play henceforth, it's fine, but you're going to have to turn McBride into a player that you're going to have to turn McBride into Genty. That's what we'd have to do. Or in the case of buying high, I guess, you can try to turn McBride into, I mean, I don't think anybody's giving you ETN at this point. You're going to have to turn him into, like, at this point, J.K. Dobbins. Prodigy sends in a question. Says, Knicks, Sampson, T-Mac for Pickens and Genty. Yeah, give me Pickens and Genty. Thank you. Rogo sends in a question. Says, what's up, broski? I dropped Giddens for Geno Smith because of Jaden Daniels before Monday Night Football, keeping my number 10 waiver wire. Okay. Says, how do I move? Or do I stay till waiver wire finishes? Yeah, stay till waiver wire finishes. Look, if you're the number 10 waiver, chances are if you have an active league, you're not getting anything. And I'd rather just move up waiver wire priority. Now, I don't mind throwing in a waiver in terms of if somebody like Tootin is out there and available, or if Troy Franklin's out there and available, I would absolutely throw in a potential kind of waiver bid to where I would legitimately throw Geno for whatever that is. Then once Jaden Daniels goes to out, I pick up Mariota. Thank you. Bisco sends in a question, says, got offered Connor and Golden for Mike Evans. Take, question mark. Connor and Golden for Mike Evans. If you need the running back, I'm cool because ultimately I'm just looking at it Evans versus Connor. And at this point, I think there's equivalent comparable value in terms of the contributions of fantasy points that they're going to bring forth. I guess it depends on scoring format, which you didn't mention, but at this point, I don't mind the Connor side. I don't mind the Evans side. I think it's, and I'm not even looking at Golden. I'm just talking about those two assets and their value in a one-on-one basis going forward. So it's equal. If you're needing of running back depth, then make it. Carlos Z says, I lost by 0.46 fantasy points and a half PPR because of Genti. My season is over. Yeah. Well, listen, just give it another week. It's a marathon. Just because we start slow doesn't mean we can't finish strong. Watch the Watch Hangout. What's up, man? It says Juwan Johnson or Goddard. I'd rather have Juwan Johnson. Again, he's being targeted 20 times in the last 2 games. When you're getting 10 targets per game, you're getting that kind of level of opportunity share. It is very difficult to ignore that. Booty or Alick? I'd rather have Alick. Drop Brian Robinson Jr. I'd only ever do that if you don't have Christian McCaffrey or if you're picking up a running back that can immediately be contributing to your lineup, or another player. It doesn't even have to be a running back. If you're dropping Brian Robinson, you theoretically have to be picking up a player that is immediately starting. Otherwise, I don't think it is the correct move. Eric M sends in a question. Says in a PPR, Henderson is my running back 2. I have Jordan Mason. I have Charbonnet. I have Loveland on my bench. Okay, so basically, Henderson is no longer your RB2. Mason is your RB2 until further notice. Do I drop one for Stevenson? Or do I hold and roll with Mason? Yeah, you would drop Loveland for Stevenson and you'd make that an immediate move right now. Thank you. Bisco sends in a follow-up. He says, give Achane/Evans for Connor, Benson, BTJ, and Golden. I would rather have the Achane Evans side. I'm not so keen on the alternative. No, I'm not. I'd rather have the Achane side. Thank you. Angel Montero says, in a full PPR pickup order, Stevenson, Johnston, and Godwin. Good question. Godwin still sits on the outside looking in because I don't know how much of an effect that ankle dislocation injury is going to impact him, especially considering it looks like Igbuka is the real deal. He's not really going anywhere. So I go Stevenson 1, Quentin Johnston 2, and Godwin 3. I understand that Stevenson at number 1 is a little bit sketchy because, again, Henderson is in the mix. But seeing as to how this offense is constructed, I always want to try to get a running back. Again, it is so scarce to be able to get running backs unless a incredibly devastating injury occurs over the course of the season. So if you're able to, at any point, ever pick up a running back that can be a contributing factor, I think that should always be prioritized. That's at least how I want to play fantasy. Anonymous says in a half PPR, Ollie Gordon or Tesla to stash. To be honest, I'm not really too interested in Tesla because ultimately he has too much competition. That is just the fact of the matter. When you were competing with Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Gibbs and Montgomery, and Jared Goff's legs, it's just too much. So Ollie would be the answer. The only way I'm ever going after Tesla is in the case of an injury to Amon-Ra or Jameson. Thank you. It says drop for Marks/Troy Franklin. Yeah, I would drop both of those for both of those. Thank you. Like the jeans, says PPR, should I flex Kenneth Walker with Charbonnet or Travis Hunter? In the event in which we are playing against Houston this week, Hunter in a PPR, the question I think then becomes a matter of like, am I getting any points for him playing defense? That's what I want to know. If the answer is yes, then I think the potential changes I think there's a lot of potential for change there in terms of projections. Now, when I rank Travis Hunter, I don't rank him under the assumption that he gets any defensive points because I never play in an IDP league. So I don't even know how IDP points works to begin with. So as of right now, I'm probably in a position to where I'm thinking in a PPR, he probably comes away with 5 catches. If we're lucky, 40 yards, it's 9 points. If he gets any defensive points, then maybe he can break double digits. In comparison to Charbonnet, that's going to get himself 15 runs, maybe 13 to 15 in this week against New Orleans. I think I'd feel more comfortable starting both Seattle running backs just to make sure I don't lose a single value point in case Charbonnet steals the goal line rushing attempt. That's how I probably approach this. And honestly, if I'm looking at your team like the Jeans, saying you have Lamb, Puka, Etienne, Pollard, at this point, I'm benching Sharbs and Hunter. I'm playing Etienne, Pollard ahead of both of them alongside of Lamb and Puka. But if you play in a double flex league, Sharbs the answer. Cinco 2X says Coleman or Pickens. That's a really good question. I think I probably stick with what I had preseason, which is Pickens, slightly ahead of Coleman still in terms of long-term value. If we're talking about this week in specific, I probably still go in that direction because that's going to be a gnarly shootout probably. Let's see here. Minga sends in a question. Says I traded Kenneth Walker, Odunze, and Cedric Tillman for Genty, Jaden Higgins. So when you say Jaden Higgins, do you mean Jaden Daniels and T. Higgins, or do you mean Jaden Higgins? Because if it's just Jaden Higgins, we lost that trade horribly. Let's see. It says I'm trying to get Mason off waivers, which yes, you should prioritize. Nix, Irving, Lamb, Ladd, McMillan, Tyler Warren, Judkins, Ridley. Yeah, I think what exactly you made in terms of the trade there, if it's Jaden Daniels and T. Higgins, I'm cool with it. If it's Jaden Higgins, that's a horrible. Yeah, it's not ideal. Flotation says, I sent a question on Twitter. Thanks for the help, mate. All right, let me see what you have here. Flotation, one moment, please. As I try to catch up on a lot of these questions here, man. Have I almost caught up? I think I've almost caught up effectively. So once I can go ahead and check out your question here, then we'll set ourselves up for some success in terms of chipping away at some of these questions. All right, let's see here. Flotation says, okay. Got a couple questions here. It says, pick number 1 is my team. Are you worried about Tracy? Absolutely worried. At this point, I'm not worried. I am just benching him permanently until further notice. Current waiver ideas. Lots of wide receivers. Okay. And it says, pick number 3, trending running backs are available. Also, the new guy from Vikings, wondering if potential running back. Okay. So let me look at this list of players that you have available here. Okay, Renfro, Diami Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Blake Corum. It says trending running backs available, which I don't even see a list. Okay, so basically you have no running backs available. Understood. Okay, got it. Should I focus on running back situation? Yeah, at this point, I'd rather just go after Renfro so that I may have a short-term kind of fill-in for the flex. That's basically it. Otherwise, I'm not picking up Xavier Scott. I don't want Jeremy McNichols. I don't want Jerome Ford. I don't want Justice Hill. I'd rather just go after the wide receivers that you have mentioned in the waiver priority in which you do have them. So that's solid there. Thank you. MC sends in a question. Says, start for me in a full PPR. Lamar, Bijan, Achane, Odunze, JSN, Fannin, Fairbairn, Cowboys defense. Bench is Tyreek, Jacoby Myers, Keenan Allen, Pearsall. Drop Fannin for Jawan. No, in fact, I would probably venture to say, like, for right now, let's drop the Cowboys defense for Jawan. Let's maybe see if we can move Tyreek Hill off this bench alongside of another player, maybe a 2-for-1, to make some adjustments for this team for the future. And then maybe we can keep both tight ends. So that's my initial suggestion. Now, as for who we're starting this week, Bijan, Achane have to start. JSN has to start. I'm very comfortable with the Odunze there against the Cowboys, especially if their secondary is going to be missing Deron Bland again. I'd start Juwan Johnson if you pick him up over Fannin. I'd leave Fairbairn there. Everything's settled. I'm just trying to move Tyreek Hill right now. Again, if you can go knock on the doors of BTJ, Nico Collins, Drake London, AJ Brown managers, please and thank you. Jake Perez says, too many people. PPR, Kyron Chuba, Jamar, BTJ, Egbuka, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen Warren, Judkins, Tootin, and Trayvon Henderson, JCM, Io Manor, Dobbs. No trade bites. Drop who? If I'm going to drop one of these potential prospects, it's Romeo Dobbs. I don't see myself ever starting him in comparison to the likes of guys like Jamar Chase, BTJ, Egbuka, Ricky Pearsall. So yeah, he would be the odd man out in this circumstance. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Dragon Fist says, Team Goff, Kamara, Aaron Jones, Amon-Ra, Nico, Pickens, Marvin Harrison, bench Purdy, Debo, Chubb, Pitts, Brian Robinson Jr., and Ridley. What moves do you suggest I make in a 10-team half PPR format? Well, at this point, considering Aaron Jones is going to the IR for the next 4 weeks, and your next best available running back is technically Nick Chubb and Brian Robinson, we're in desperate need of running back depth, to which I would suggest we're probably in the position to where you were trying to trade away either Pickens or Debo Samuel. I think it would be easier to move Debo Samuel, but I'd also rather have him in comparison to Pickens rest of season. So I guess it's just a matter of what teams in your league are in, what do they desire in this circumstance. If you can take Chubb and Debo or Chubb and Pickens and go and trade for, I'm not even joking, I mean, really just about anybody at this point, because we need reinforcements badly on this team. Looking at the list of players that I could potentially go and buy low on, I am okay with the idea of going after a Breece Hall. Again, I will continue to mention JCM, Gentis. Again, I'm not 2 for 1 for just JCM. Like at that point, I'm 2 for 2ing. I'm going to be a little bit more, we're not immediately throwing away all the value there. The Marion Hamptons of the world, definitely going after that. Again, like I mentioned Breece Hall a little bit earlier. That's what we try to potentially go after. Chase Browns. Try to make a move in regards to those players. Try to bring it in. You have Debo, you have Pickens, you have Chubb. Try to make a move. Thank you. Nick James sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I lost Toe Burrow and Aaron Jones in the flex. I need waiver wire advice. Love or May? Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, considering the circumstance that you're in, I think in the long term, in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, I'd probably rather have Drake May because of the rushing upside that he's able to provide on a weekly basis. I think Jordan Love in the long run, again, could potentially outproduce him. But I mean, again, I'd rather just have Drake May. He was higher ranked in the preseason. I'll continue to stick with that. He's performed relatively well, with what he has, been given with the weapons that surround him. Says, what order for the flex? We have Algier, Stevenson, Shaheed, and Wando Robinson in a PPR. I mean, it depends on considering you lost Aaron Jones, right? I think Stevenson has to be number 1. Then it goes to Wando 2. Then it goes to, Shaheed 3, Algier 4. Algier is not someone that I'm actually starting more than probably 1 week out of this year. So, yeah, that's probably the way in which I go about it. Thank you. AGZ sends in a question. Says, BTJ or Keenan Allen PPR? I'd rather have BTJ. And if we're talking about who we're starting this week, I'd still rather start BTJ. If I drafted BTJ in round 2, round 3, whatever format you play in, whether it's a 12, 10, 8-team league, I am starting BTJ until I either lose the season or he's out for the season. One of the two has to happen. And then also your follow-up, Pitts, Juwan Johnson, or Keenan Allen in the flex. I'd rather play Keenan Allen in the flex at that point. Second best option will be Juwan Johnson, then Pitts third. Thank you. CS Derek sends in a question. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and check the live chat. While I check the live chat, if Matt Glore, if you are in the live chat somewhere, do me a favor and type in your question that you sent in earlier today. Obviously, wasn't able to attach it to the super chat, but if you can do that right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Same thing with you, CS Derek. Twisted Folks says, I wound up with Nix, May, and Caleb Williams. Okay, so you have pretty solid quarterback play. Hopefully you can maybe make a trade here and get some value in return. Says, I have DJ Moore and I'm attempting to upgrade wide receiver by targeting my league mates with injured quarterbacks. What caliber wide receiver is realistic? If you're playing in a 1-quarterback league, I think the realistic potential kind of target values that you would go after is potentially buying low on legitimately Terry McLaurin. I think that's what you would have to potentially explore. Because if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want, no way I'm giving away a Ladd McConkey for this kind of a player. No one's giving away Cortland Sutton, Nico Collins. If you could, by all means, get it done. BTJs of the world are not going to be given out freely for a quarterback of this caliber. But hey, if somebody is willing to make that move, fantastic. But I think in terms of realistic potential value that you could get in return, like I mentioned earlier, I think there's arguments to be made to which maybe you can get a Terry McLaurin because he's done absolutely nothing. Maybe there's a possibility in which someone's going to give you a Devontae Smith because he's done nothing, right? Those are like the extreme buy lows in this circumstance. I think those work in terms of options in which I actually feel relatively comfortable with because they will be contributors to my team once bye weeks and injuries start to kind of tack in the coming weeks here. But if you can go get, even more valuable options like an AJ Brown instead of a Devontae Smith or a Cortland Sutton instead of a Terry McLaurin, then let's explore that route. Thank you. All right, let me go to the live chat real quick and let me see if in fact we had Matt Glore who says trade Strange for Packers defense in a PPR dynasty league. Strange is my is my 6th tight end behind Kraft, Kelsey, Johnson, Likely, and Ferguson. Packers schedule upcoming is good. Yeah, let's make the move. Again, you have enough you have enough tight end depth to be able to just shoo them away. Because again, we're still trying to win a championship this year. So I think that helps accomplish that potential goal. All right, where's CS Derek? Says, league mate dropped Caleb Johnson in the dynasty today. Got to pick him up. Absolutely. Bad idea to drop Jaden Reed for the pure potential of Johnson. Is it a bad idea? Look, here's the thing. What we know for certain is that even once Reed comes back, Christian Watson will return. And that offense, I said it earlier this week when I talked about Romeo Dobbs in terms of waiver wire pickups. Jordan spreads the love, right? He doesn't have a number one. Now, as much as I want that number one to be a Matthew Golden or a Tucker Kraft, it's just not enough target opportunity to singular options to where I am like blindly starting these players on a weekly basis. We haven't blindly started Jaden Reed for a while because, again, he just doesn't have the value. Now, the potential of Caleb Johnson and what he presents is something that we may not see come to fruition for years, right? You may not see Caleb Johnson be relevant this year. If nothing is to happen in terms of injuries to Kenneth Gainwell and or Jaylen Warren, then theoretically he is just someone that you are picking up for the future. And in my mind, I'm still willing to potentially even cross that path if your wide receiver depth looks solidified enough to where Jaden Reed doesn't hurt in terms of dropping. Because at any time I can pick up a third-round running back that's associated with an offense that technically needs running back help, I'm okay making that move. All right, we caught up there. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. We continue on with the question that comes in from... Where is it? All right, Twisted Folk, we took care of. Demond Smith, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Says, I traded Igbuka for Hampton. Beautiful. I love it. Still believe in Hampton, and Godwin will come back soon. Yeah, that's fine. Listen, again, I haven't panicked on Hampton yet to where I am avoiding that kind of a trade. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. Ibrahim says, get Ferguson or Pitts? I'd rather have Ferguson rest of the season. Thank you. Updated thoughts on Fannin, still going to be relevant at this point. I would say that he is completely going to siphon, or by the time we get to midway through the season, he may completely steal the job from Njoku based on how he's playing thus far. Anthony Marr says, my question didn't post correctly in format. Questions in the chat. All right, Anthony, let me check that right now, see if it's potentially been retyped. But I mean, based on what I saw in terms of your question earlier, I read it fully, unless there's something that I missed theoretically. So I have the context of your team, right? And then it says, thinking about trading Mahomes and Swift for J.K. Dobbins / Saquon Barkley. Bryce Young and Daniel Jones are on waivers. I see. Okay, so now I understand. So in the event in which you're trading 2 for 1 and you can go get Daniel Jones, then you make the move. But what I would suggest that you do, Anthony, is that you should probably go and confirm that you're able to get Daniel Jones off of the waivers before you entertain a trade of this sort. So if you're able to make that potential pickup for Daniel Jones, then at that point, am I willing to make that trade in which I'm getting Saquon / Barkley? Sounds good to me. All right, we continue on. Let's go back here. Thank you again, Anthony. I appreciate your patience there, my man. I apologize for not being able to get to that question earlier. We continue with a question that comes in from Sway, who says, how to improve my team? We have Bo Nix, we have Michael Penix, okay? We have Neighbors, BTJ, JSN, Myers, Tillman, Thielen, Mooney, Kamara. Okay, I see a lot of ways in which we can improve this. T. Tracy, JCM, Braylon Allen, Hawkinson, Love. Okay, great. So this is the way that I go about immediately messing with your team. When I say messing, I mean we need to really overhaul. Penix dropped. We're continuing with Thielen, dropped. Braylon Allen, dropped. Loveland, potentially dropped. So there's 4 drops right there. What am I doing? I am going and picking up flyers off waivers. Whether they be at quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, running back, doesn't matter. Whether I'm even picking up an extra defense to prepare for next week, it doesn't matter. I'm in a position to where those players are not, in my mind, valuable enough to keep on roster, and they're not contributing. So I can't drop Hawkinson yet, because again, we're getting a quarterback change here. So I can justify moving Loveland off my roster to go pick up another tight end, or at least moving Penix and Thielen off roster, Braylon Allen off roster to go get a third tight end to prepare and have that guy start this week for me. As of right now, I got to make a lot of moves in terms of trades. That's a completely alternate kind of expansion. With Kamara, JCM, you can survive in the short term. JSN, Myers, BTJ, Neighbors, you're solid there. You're just waiting for BTJ to bounce back. But in terms of waiver wire kind of adjustments, that's how we need to improve this team in the short term. In the event in which we cannot accomplish that because there aren't very many opportunity plays for tight end on the waivers, then we're looking to potentially make a trade where we're taking a guy like Jacoby Myers and going out and seeing who we can potentially send a Myers Hawkinson for in this league. Thank you. Bearcat says, hey Andrew, can you please put them in order? Prescott, Lawrence, Penix, and stream defense. Okay. Between those available options, Prescott 1, Lawrence 2, Penix 3. As for those streaming defensive options between the Falcons and the Packers, I'd rather have the Packers defense against Cleveland. Thank you. Spencer James sends questions in the chat. All right, Spencer, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to please go ahead and type that question into the chat right now because I'm assuming it hasn't been typed in quite a while, so I need you to re-update that. Thank you. Nel Santiago. Nels, hope you're doing well, brother. Says, hey, bro, in a full PPR, I had Fields. I need a quarterback between Prescott, Mac Jones, Caleb Williams, May, Penix, Stafford, Lawrence. Yeah, cool. Of those available options, legitimately, I would rather have Caleb Williams over the bunch. Caleb will be number 1. Prescott will be number 2. Thank you. Kaiser says, happy birthday. Go questions in the chat. Thank you, Kaiser. Let me go ahead and write your name down. If you can hear me, Kaiser, type in your question in the chat so I can get to it. Thank you. Matt Glore says, I'm back live. Sorry, phone was tweaking. Okay, Matt, did you end up hearing my response to your question? If not, please let me know in the live chat. Appreciate it. Sway sends in a follow-up. Says, Franklin or Jawan Johnson available? Available on waivers. I'm number 3. Okay, so if you're in desperate need of a tight end, then I theoretically could suggest going for Jawan Johnson there with the number 3 option. Otherwise, I probably just hold number 3 and move up to number 1. Andrew Gang sends in a question. Says, in a 12-man half PPR, I got offered 2 trades. JSN for my Bill and Igbuka, and Chase Brown for Igbuka and K9. Interesting. And it says, any you'd lean more towards? Yeah, I'd rather have the JSN trade. But let me look at this team. It says, I have Puka, Igbuka, Pickens, Myers. Okay. CMC, K9, Bill, and Brian Robinson. Considering... The thing is, you're playing in a half PPR. I don't even love the trade. That's the thing. I don't feel some type of way to where I'm like, oh, it has to be made. Because if you were playing in a full PPR, then sure. I'd be like, you know what? JSN has to be on my roster at this point. But considering it's not even a full PPR, I got to think about that one. Yeah, let me think about that. Let's see where Spencer's question's at here. Spencer James says the following. Says, my team consists of Herbert, Dak, May, Bucky, Connor, Benson, CD. Let's see here. Your team consists of Bucky, Connor, CD, Ted, McMillan, Higgins, Quinn. Honestly, I make the move. I think Genty, I would make the move. It may be crazy because of how Genty has performed, but I make the move. I think Genty's matchups thus far this season have been horribly difficult. I make it. Okay, thank you, Spencer. Kaiser, let's see if you have a question in the chat. Kaiser says, I started 0-2. I'm in a 10-man full PPR. I got Mahomes, CD, BTJ, T. Higgins, Jacobs, Trevion Henderson, Njoku. We have Calvin Ridley, Pearsall, Fannin Jr., Judkins, Fields, Sampson, and Aubrey. Is there any trades I should be doing? I mean, as of right now, look, here's the thing. I'm not trying to sell low on any of your players. So, like, BTJ, I can't sell. Higgins, I'm still holding on to. Jacobs is solid. We are in need of a potential RB2, to which in your circumstance is technically Judkins right now because Henderson's not a viable starter at the moment in a 10-team format. So, if you're potentially looking for a trade, you're going to have to wait for any of these players on your team to, like, have a pop-off performance. Because as of right now, like, you have to start Mahomes, CD, BTJ, T. Higgins, Jacobs every week. Judkins has to probably be your RB2 or it has to be Henderson, which again, in a PPR, it's probably Hendo this week. And you're waiting for Ridley, Pearsall, or Fields to have a breakout performance here so where you can sell them high. As of right now, I'm hitting waivers and I'm just waiting because I'm trying to buy in on RB. And unless someone's going to hand off, or hand away Hampton for an incredibly low, compensation point, or if somebody's going to give away players that they shouldn't at this current, moment because of panic, explore that route, try to take advantage of them. But as of right now, I doubt anybody is handing out JCMs, Hamptons, or Genties in your league free of cost, to which you can get them for Ridleys and Pearsall. I doubt it. So I think you're going to have to wait for big performances here. And in the meanwhile, just kind of scrap up off the waivers because it is a 10-team league and we can find a lot of value there to potentially turn into, trade fodder in the upcoming weeks. Okay, Matt Galore, let me see what else you had here. Let me see if you ended up hearing my question. It says, okay, so Matt Galore, I don't think you ended up, I think Matt already probably heard his question because he didn't type in recently. Okay, we're good to go there. Thank you, man. Michael Hart says, you're cutting out. Am I really? Your mic cutting off. Really? Cutting out badly. Mic is cooked? Really? Is that serious? Can you guys do me a favor? Refresh, if you can. Because unless it's lagging, it shouldn't ever cut out. Mike needs the blue tent? What the fuck? Really? I'm actually curious. I want to listen to this. 1 second. Not cooked. Okay, good. It's fine. Yeah. I listened back to it. I think it's probably your guys' internet. Yeah. Good. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the person who said the mic is got cooked. No, I'm just kidding. I used to do that. YouTube, yeah, it's a YouTube thing. We're good. Okay, but I do appreciate for those of you who were letting me know, because in the future, if at any point I do cut out, I would like to know so that I can fix that. So thank you for letting me know, guys. I appreciate that. If you guys can refresh, we're good to go. Appreciate it, guys. Okay. Catching up. Again, I'm not leaving for any time soon. I'm still here for another 50 minutes answering questions, okay? So, trying to catch up to the best of my ability. Let's go to the next questions here, shall we? Where are we? Okay, so Andrew Gang, getting back to your question, first and foremost. In terms of the trades that you've been offered, I don't like the Buka and K9 trade at all. Not even close. So, not interested there. As for the build, I don't even think I like that one. I like to keep the depth you have. I would legitimately keep what you have. I wouldn't make those trades, man. Thank you. Joshua Wilkins sends in a question. Says, would you trade Kyron Williams and Cortland Sutton for Marvin Harrison and Omarion Hampton in a half PPR league? No, I wouldn't. I'd rather have Kyron Williams and Cortland Sutton rest of the season. Thank you. AP sends in a question. Says, questions in the chat. AP, do me a favor and retype it in the chat. Thank you, man. Anthony C sends in a question. Says, Judkins or Tootin from the Wire? That's a great question. I think Judkins, in terms of short-term and long-term, he could be a guy. So I'd like to have him in comparison to Tootin rest of season. Rogo sends in a question, says, Anthony also had a question saying, is this now the best opportunity to buy BTJ low? Yes, this is one of the few chances you will have to buy in BTJ low. So if you have an opportunity to do so, explore it. Rogo says, how do I get Tootin and Mariota if Kittle and Likely are on IR? You drop Likely. Thank you. Joshua Scully sends in a question. Says, drop either Caleb or Kyler to pick up Daniel Dimes. Yeah, I'm okay dropping Kyler in this circumstance. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm okay doing it. But Caleb is my preferred of the two. All right. Let me go ahead. I can hear my own voice from my computer because I left that on. Okay, there we go. Side Chan sends in a question. Says, I've got Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, pick up Corum. If you have available bench spots, sure. But otherwise, you already have two other RB backups. Picking up a third and having 6 of your potential 14, 15 roster spots consisting of running back, I think is a little bit much. But if you have the availability to do so and you have the available spots, sure. But in the coming few weeks here, you may have to eventually drop them because of bipocalypse that may hit. Sean K sends in a question, says, Ridley or Wando Robinson rest of season PPR? I'm losing faith in Ridley. You're not alone. I am as well. I think I would have expected a little bit more target opportunity share in his direction. 14 targets in 2 games is not convincing enough. In terms of the short term, I think Wanda Robinson is probably the guy that I would like to pick up because I can immediately play him without any hesitation in comparison to Ridley, which I have to consider matchup every single week with him because I don't think he can be blindly started because he doesn't get an opportunity share within his offense. So I'd probably lean towards Wanda there. Luke C says Connor or JMO for... Connor/JMO for Omarion Hampton. I think you're giving too much at that point. Unless you're playing in an incredibly deep league, I think I'd rather just have the Connor JMO side there. Because if you remember early in the season where the values at which I had Omarion Hampton ranked compared to Connor, they're very comparable. JMO doesn't... Yeah, I think you're giving up too much there. Sanchez says, would you get Njigba and Bucky for Bowers and Achane? Ooh, okay. If we're talking about a full PPR format, and you were to tell me, Andrew, Bowers is not going to miss another game rest of season, and Achan's going to be good because Tua is going to be perfectly fine. I'd say, yeah, I'd probably rather have that side. But considering I can't even guarantee that potential future, if you've got a decent enough backup tight end, maybe you also drafted Tyler Warren or Tucker Kraft or something, at that point I take it. But I think that's the only context in which I make a move like that is if I have the valuable enough tight end backup to be able to make a move like that. Otherwise, I probably keep what you have. Chase says Fields and T-Law rostered. Okay, hit waivers for Jones or Goff. Yeah, get rid of Trevor Lawrence, pick up either of the other two. Give me Jones preferably because of the rushing upside. Nicholas sends in a question. Says, would you do Ridley and Pickens for Nico? Yes, 100%. Give me Nico Collins every day of the week there. D Blag sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 0-2. What moves do I need to make or do I hold out? We have Justin Fields, we have Gibbs, Pacheco, Pollard, Drake, London, McConkey. Yeah, I understand why you're 0-2 now. Warren, McMillan. We have Mooney, Cup, Rashid Rice. We have Rashid. You put Rashid right? Yeah, it's Rashid. Okay, I know what you meant. Okay, so Algier, Booty, and Los Angeles Chargers and Miami, Minnesota. Okay, cool. So of those available options, first and foremost, we have to address quarterback. So Fields needs to be probably dealt with. We're getting rid of Kayshon Boutte in this. Actually, no, we're getting rid of. It's either let's get rid of Kayshon Boutte between the bunch of players in which you have here. I'm picking up a backup quarterback. After that, we are in need of a big performance here from, at this point, Pollard, so you can maybe ship him off. That's what I would like to do, because once in fact you get Rashee Rice back, when you accompany him with McMillan, London, and McConkey, like, you're set with your 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, to which we're just primarily looking to try to fix that quarterback position for this week. Tyler Warren is your set it and forget it tight end, and we need an RB2. And Pacheco and Pollard are not going to be able to consistently provide that once Spears returns. So Pollard hopefully can put together a solid performance here against the Colts, and in which he does, then we're trying to move him to see if we can get some value in his stead. Thank you. In the event in which, again, like I mentioned earlier, you can trade for guys like a JCM, a Breece Hall, a Gentry, or Marion Hampton, in which you don't have to give away running back depth, and you can get away with that, then potentially explore it. But I think it may take a little bit of time until Rashee Rice returns to you being able to move a wide receiver because the bench options you have are not as significant. Like Jeans says in the following, says Ayuk or Godwin rest of season. That's a great question. As of right now, I don't know the exact return date of Ayuk. I know that Godwin is sooner than him, so I'll lean towards Godwin because, again, I don't know what the current status of Ayuk's return is, and he's coming off of a more significant injury of the ACL with less kind of rest time in between. Dr. Waffles 31 says, what do you think about this trade I just made? I sent Evans and Hampton and Pollard for London, Walker, and Myers. That's beautiful. I think at this point, London is such a significant upgrade from Evans that he masks any separation between him and Hampton theoretically. But again, that is a on paper masking. Otherwise, right now, Walker is the better of the two. So you already won in both of those circumstances. And then Myers isn't going anywhere where he's getting double-digit targets every week. So that's a great trade on your end. Good job. Julian says Drake London for McMillan rest of season. I'd rather have Drake London. Thank you. Scott sends it again. If you guys go watch what McMillan did this last week, yes, he had 100 receiving yards. The guy runs 3 routes. Crossing routes, go balls, and 5-yard hitches. That's it. There's nothing else. They have him in such a basic route tree that it's embarrassing for the talent that he possesses. So until we get a little bit of a change there, it's still Drake London. Scott sends in a question. Says in a 12-team non-PPR league, my running backs are JT, Achan, Pacheco, Sampson. My tight ends are Andrews. Do I drop Sampson for Juwan Johnson or Evan Ingram? Evan Ingram is done. If you guys have him on roster, drop him. Juwan Johnson's the pickup for Sampson there. Says, would you rather have Rashee Rice or McBride rest of season with 3 other startable wide receivers? I would rather have Rashee Rice in this circumstance, primarily because if we're talking about once he returns to your team in a non-PPR league to which you can go and if it's a non-PPR, I'd rather stick with the Rashee Rice side of this overall circumstance. But again, if that is a pure matter of like once he returns. In the short term, if you can survive without a contributor of that capacity, I think it'll help you in the long run. Ulysses sends in a follow-up. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It says in a 12-team league, I trade Ertz, Breece Hall, and Pittman Jr. and Judy for Amon-Ra. This guy's team is cooked, and I can fleece. Yeah, take it. Again, if you can give away all 4 of these players and it does nothing to your team because you have Bijan, Hubbard, Ladd, Pitts, and Ayuk, says I can also offer Myers or Kamara. No. We want Myers and Kamara. We want those players. Don't give him. Send the rest of it. You're good to go, brother. Thank you. Carlos Z says, "Sup, Andrew? I need a flex. Debo, Pearsall, Quentin Johnston, Bill, Henderson, and Tillman." Okay. Debo has to be your flex. He is just incorporated within the offense. He is the offense. Let's just put it that way. He is the offense at this point. So he is the number 1 play there. The next best option is probably Bill, considering the circumstance as of this week. So those are your 2 options. Should I drop anyone? Of the availables that you just mentioned, Tillman is your least valuable asset if you were trying to go pick up Green Bay's defense. Thank you. Tommy Gunn sends in a question, says, "Hey, boss, thoughts on Njoku? Going forward, Fannin has taken too much of the opportunity share away from him to where I can't trust him outright every week. So I have Tyler Warren starting, great. But someone dropped Isaiah Likely in my league. Yeah, pick him up, put him on IR. Felix Rodriguez says, trade Cooks, A. Brown for Kyron, London, and Tet. Okay, so James Cook and A.J. Brown for Kyron, London, and Teteroa McMillan. That is a very interesting trade. If you are in need of the wide receiver depth of Teteroa McMillan, you make the move. Otherwise, I believe that Cook is a significantly better option than Kyron, and A.J. Brown and London can technically be an even asset trade-off, depending on which way we go about it for the future here. To where the biggest difference maker is if you need Tet. If you need him, then you make the move. If not, if this is just a luxury move, then don't need to make it. But if Teteroa McMillan starts for your team, then I make this move. South C77 says, my quarterbacks are Fields and Penix. Okay. Would you drop either of them for Daniel Jones or Drake May? Yeah, I would drop, honestly, Penix for either of those 2 available options. If you can get Daniels or May, make the move. Thank you. Clenfus sends in a question. Says, Hampton plus Mooney for Chase Brown. Yeah, I'll take Chase Brown there. Thank you. Never Ender sends in a question. Says, should I make any moves? I'm currently 1-1 in a half PPR. Mahomes, Saquon, Etienne, London, Rice, Waddle, Pickens, Bowers, Algier, Benson, Sampson, White. Okay, 2 bench spots open. Okay, looking at your team from the top down, right? Like Saquon, Etienne, London, Rice, Waddle, Pickens, Bowers, very valuable pieces here. Like, only thing that is really just in question is like, okay, we can get rid of Sampson, technically speaking, and even open up a 3rd bench spot. But ultimately, we're just looking to go potentially add some pieces. What I'm looking to add to this team in specific is I want another quarterback for trade fodder, and I want wide receivers. That's it. If you can go make that happen via the waiver wire, then keep going because you got a strong team across the board. I'm not touching anything here unless someone in your team is in an Omega panic mode to where they're trying to send away Pickens. Not Pickens, excuse me. They're trying to send away BTJs and elevated opportunity guys like that for a guy like Pickens. Then sure, we attack that. But otherwise, keep it as good. Keep it as is. Never ender. SR20 Mar sends in a question. Says, Packers or Ravens defense? Packers, for sure. At this point, they've proven that they are an elite team. Also, Boswell, Schrader, or Prater. Prater and Schrader have been some ridiculous contributors as of late. Considering the Colts play against Tennessee this week, I think I'm making the move towards Schrader in a lot of my leagues. Rogo says, seems like I don't get it. I'm losing number 10 priority on Tootin. Number 10 priority on Tootin. Seems like I don't get it. Okay, look, here's the thing. Number 10 priority is not a good thing. You want number 1 priority, right? So if you can get Tootin for the number 10 priority in your league, yes, do it. But if you, I mean, again, I'm going to assume somebody picks him up before you're able to get him. But yeah, put in the waiver. If you can get Tootin, get him, Rogo. Thank you. Alex Bellinger sends in a question. Bellinger says in a half PPR, Knicks, Marvin Harrison. We have AJ Brown, Tet McMillan, Mason, Bijan, and Pitts. Okay, Bellinger, what exactly is your question here? That's my question, because I know the context of your team now. The question is, what are we looking for? JK says, use my 4th waiver for Dimes or Ertz. I need a quarterback and a tight end. I'd rather have Dimes. I think tight end's a little bit easier to trade for. Technically, actually, you know what? Yes, I'd rather have Dimes. Yes, I think tight end's something that's a little bit more accessible. Andrew Mitchell says, trade Marvin Harrison for T. Higgins. Oh, goodness gracious. My YouTube just crashed. Give me a second. Let's see here. Let me get back to this question. What did it exactly say in this circumstance? Marvin Harrison for T. Higgins and a half full PPR. I would do that. legitimately. I think Jake Browning is still valuable enough to make it worth a damn. Okay, where are we at here? So if we look at the potential of, I was going to look for Alex Bellinger's question. So Alex, where are you, my man? Alex says, any focus for trade? Okay, considering you have Knicks, good to go. Marvin Harrison, AJ Brown, great. Tyrell McMillan, great. I think, again, Marvin Harrison is someone like, hopefully in due time, we'll get a little bit more of an opportunity share to where we don't have to like suffer every week that we play him or wonder, oh, is he actually going to be a great contributor? Because there are just weeks in which, I mean, I don't get it. I think the offense needs to just be overhauled with the new OC. That's how I think this should be approached. But anyway, in terms of your team as a whole, your biggest necessity, even though I've just complained about Marvin Harrison for about 3 minutes here, is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts got to go. We got to get something else on roster. Absolutely need something else. As to how we do it, got to hit the waivers. In the event in which you can go about making a 2-for-2 trade in which someone will take Pitts and Marvin Harrison off your hands, and you can go get an improved tight end and a lesser receiver. Like if someone's going to send back, I don't know. Let me think about this objectively. If someone's going to send back if someone's going to send back Jacoby Myers and Jawan Johnson for Pitts and Marvin Harrison, I think I legitimately would just instantly take that. I wouldn't even blink or think twice. I just want players that are going to be contributing factors, and I don't know if Pitts is going to be able to actively always be contributing with Mooney in the, back into the overall mix of target, threat. Fernando Perez says, keep or drop Mark Andrews for Pitts, Henry, Fannin, or other full PPR tight end options. Okay, so considering the available options you have, if Mark Andrews doesn't drop that touchdown this week, I don't even think we have this question, but he goes ahead and drops it anyway, just to give all of us a little bit of a heartache. You have Dak Prescott, JJ, BTJ, Achane, Kyron, Devontae Adams, Ekbuka, Pollard, McMillan, Hollywood Brown, Braylon Allen. So if I was in your position here, I don't drop Andrews, I drop Braylon Allen, and I go pick up Fannin. That's how I go about this. Thank you. And then I also pick up Isaiah Likely, and I put him in your IR spot. Appreciate it. Now, as for how we improve this team, give it time. JJ, BTJ will improve. Again, the quarterback change here with Carson Wentz, I think, improves JJ in the meanwhile. I think BTJ, again, is only going to get better. He can only play so bad for so long. So, yeah, that's how I kind of go about this pushing forward. Akshay sends in a question. Akshay, hope you're doing well. Long time no see, my man. Akshay says the following. Says, my question is, rate my squad and the moves in a 12-team PPR league start 7 with Daniels, Chase, Brown, Benson, Swift, Judkins, Harvey, Charbonnet, JSN, CeeDee Lamb, Buka. Okay, so clear in a way, your biggest, really the strongest point of your team is at wide receiver. So with Jaden Daniels out this week, and considering it's a start 7, that means 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. Considering that as a circumstance, you are basically in a perpetual loop of just like, okay, you're starting Kraft, JSN, CeeDee Lamb, and you can play matchups with Igbuka and Sutton in the flex. Or you could potentially take one of those 2 players, pair it up with Swift, and send it off for a potential upgrade. Take Igbuka and Swift, and let's go get another running back. That's probably the preferred plan of action. Now, you're probably going to try to aim for a team that's 0-2, panicking a little bit, and also needs that wide receiver depth. So that's the primary suggestion. Otherwise, pretty strong team across the board. Just need to improve the RB2 because I don't think Swift is going to be able to consistently contribute the way that we want him to. We had a question that came in from Wheezy who says, I got offered Nico and K9 for Bucky and Olave. Yeah, give me Nico and K9 immediately. I have Bucky, Judkins, easily. I take that. Young Money sends in a question. Says, Franklin or Wando Robinson off of the waivers. I'd rather have Wando Robinson. Says Franklin better than Ingram. Yeah, Franklin has basically rendered Ingram droppable. So at this point, going in the direction of Wando Robinson still, because here's my thought process on the matter. I have witnessed what Wan'Dale Robinson as the number 2 receiving option of the New York Giants looks like. We witnessed it last season. He had 140 effing targets. That is something we cannot ignore. If this organization is going to continue to utilize him in that capacity because the coaching staff is the same and they're going to continue to utilize him as the number 2 receiving option, there's going to be far more negative game scripts and heavy passing scripts for the Giants than there is for the Denver Broncos. I guess, and again, on top of it, there's less threats to compete with for Wan'Dale Robinson. He's the preferred of the two. Felix Rodriguez says, I got Justin Jefferson, Odunze, Javonte Williams, Lad McConkey, and Achane. Okay, that's a really good group. What's your question in terms of the context here? Somebody was asking, who's Dimes? That's Daniel Dimes, as in Daniel Jones, as in Indiana Jones. Thank you. Felix, do me a favor and let me know what the context of this is. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Smell My Fingers says, are BTJ and Trevion Henderson going to stop killing me? You know what? I'll give them a call. I'll shoot BTJ a text probably tomorrow after practice, and I'll let him know, hey, Smell My Fingers, let me know that you're killing him. I need you to help us out here, buddy. Trust me, I have BTJ in my own home league, and he is rendering me absolutely disastrously in shambles. Trevion Henderson, on the other hand, his off-season, his draft stock was so high going in like the 3rd, 4th round, I could never afford getting him. I could never justify it based on where I had him ranked. So are they going to stop killing you? BTJ will be fine. Henderson's going to be a little bit of a tricky situation because for some reason that coaching staff insists on giving Ramondre Stevenson receiving work and Antonio Gibson any run in 2025. It makes no sense to me. Paul Adams says, hey, Andrew, can you check the DMs? I'll tell and tell me what your thoughts are. When you say DMs, do you mean like on Twitter? Is that what you mean? What do you mean by DMs, Paul? I don't know what you mean. Yeah. That is my question. Okay, let me scroll down here. Okay, where are we at? Okay, so how long have I been here for? Nearly 2 hours. Okay, so at 8:45 PST, I'm gonna call it there because I have to go back and I have to answer Patreon questions. Again, really quickly, I've been live streaming here for about a couple hours. Really quick reminder. Again, if you guys want to get questions answered in regards to that kind of stuff, the Patreon's always available, in which I answer questions daily there. Unlimited questions, so I don't have to be live streaming. I do appreciate those of you who've signed up there. Obviously, you also get rankings every single week, every Thursday and Sunday. And of course, you get Patreon exclusive Discord server access if that is something that you're interested in. And of course, you are a member of the Discord. It's a free app, all that kind of jazz, in which you can send me screenshots of your team so we can help answer questions. Now, outside of getting rankings there, of course, you can find rankings via Betr every single Sunday morning by signing up using code Andrew. Earlier today, throughout the running back episode, I was specifically talking about the potential of Devon Achane going more than 3.5 receptions this week. So it's a pretty good look there if you're able to sign up there based on your state's eligibility and all that kind of jazz. Of course, the map to the right side of the screen will determine that based on your current location, and you can get those rankings every single Sunday morning from weeks 3 through 18, all positions, half PPR, full PPR, if you're interested in getting that settled up with, so you don't have to ask questions on a Sunday morning. Thank you. Okay, there's a lot of questions. I wanted to figure out what the context of Felix was. Felix, what did you say? He says, I asked earlier if I trade Cooks and AJ Brown for Kyron, London, and Ted. Thank you, Felix. Appreciate it. You got Justin Jefferson, Odunze, Javonte Williams, Ladd, and Achane. Okay. So with the context of this situation, I don't believe you need... I'll take the James Cook and AJ Brown side because you have Justin Jefferson, Achane, Javonte, Odunze. I'd rather have that side. Thank you, Felix, for the context there, man. Appreciate it. Okay, we've caught up there. Where's Paul Adam? I gotta find that again. Paul Adam says, "Oh, on Discord. That's what you mean in terms." Okay, thank you. I was going to say, I was like, what are you talking about? My phone's at 20%. Okay, very well. Let's see what you have on Discord. Says Andrew, I'm going over this again. Should I target? 12 team full PPR. Okay, let's look at what you have here, brother. So, in terms of what we're going to potentially target in this circumstance, looking at the available options at tight end and then available options elsewhere. Obviously, we want Zach Ertz and we want Juwan Johnson. Preferably, I would like to have Juwan Johnson because of the target opportunity share and less of a reliability on of touchdowns occurring on a weekly basis. So, Juwan Johnson will be the preferred of the group if you can go ahead and bring that in. Now, other alternative options that we could potentially go after would be very much so dependent on what is available in your league at this current moment. If players that I mentioned on today's waiver or yesterday's waiver wire episode, specifically those running backs, are available, those would probably be prioritized even before these tight ends. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. If you have any other questions, type it in and I'll go ahead and answer it there. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and let's rip through some of these questions. John Loring sends it a question. Says, Burrow owner here. Goff is on the waivers. How much fab do I spend out of 100? I'm in a one quarterback league. Unload the clip? No, you're not going to unload the clip because even if, in fact, you don't get Goff, I would rather go after someone like Jake Browning and be okay with it, or at least make a trade. In the event in which you're going after Goff, I think it is very much so a feasible option to where you could spend 20% of your fab, because you have to think about it this way, John. You're the only one that lost Burrow. Nobody else lost Burrow this week. Yes, people are going to lose McCarthy. People are going to lose Jaden Daniels for a week. Someone's going to lose Justin Fields for a week. But I doubt that they're going to rip a high capacity of fab for Goff rest of season. Yes, it's one game of 5 passing touchdowns. That's awesome. But I don't think it's going to be that big of an aggressive point. If you believe that teams in your league are going to be incredibly aggressive and spend more than 20 potential fab, then at that point, they may just let him have it. At that point, I'd rather just go get somebody else off of the waivers and play matchups weekly. Dude, give me Jake Browning then at that point. I'd rather not rip my fab. But in the event in which, again, you don't think they're going to be as aggressive because, again, not too many people are looking for that second quarterback because they didn't have a quarterback injury or they have a second one on roster, then at that point, just, yeah, I think 20 is fair, and I think you won't really have to worry about it. I think you'll probably outbid people by a pretty good margin even at that point. Charles sends in a question. Says, PPR, trade Javonte Williams for Diggs and Jonnu. What? Charles, great question. Jay Williams, if that's Jamison Williams, okay, because it's definitely not going to be Javonte, because Javonte is far too valuable. Jamison Williams for those alternative options? No, I'd rather have Jamison Williams on roster. Thank you. Danny I sends in a question. Danny, I appreciate it, my man. Danny I says, Cup or Harrison? Messed up my super chat. Let me see here. Cup or Marvin Harrison? I'd rather have Marvin Harrison. If we're talking about starting this week, it's going to be Marvin Harrison. I don't think I'll put myself in a position to where I'm starting Cup. But then again, by tomorrow's video, I may change my mind. Keep an eye on that by tomorrow. And you'll for sure be able to get at least my half PPR take. For right now, I lean towards Marv, as the Arizona Cardinals should be in a better spot taking on 49ers this week. Thank you. Because it'll be a closer game. They won't have to run out the clock in the second half, all that kind of jazz. They won't have an onside kick in which they get a possession stolen from them late in the game by the Carolina Panthers. Walter Gregg says, in a full PPR, I traded A.J. Brown and Quinshon Judkins for Jordan Mason. Don't like that. I have Chuba Hubbard, Omarion Hampton, Tootin. I'm 0-2. I need more points. I understand, but man, you are risking it because Jordan Mason has to now hold pole position of that backfield every game for the rest of the season. If he does, you're in a solid position. If he doesn't, I think you may regret it in the long run. Gwen, what's up? Do you have a question in the chat here, Gwen? Or is it on Discord? Oh, no, it wouldn't even be on Discord. It would be on Patreon. Gwen, let me check Patreon, and I'll see if I can help you out there. If you're still looming here in the live chat, I appreciate it, Gwen. Okay, Gwen says, I know I need to... Okay. In case Bowers goes down. Yep, that's fine. Would you pick up Robinson or Franklin? I'd rather have Wando Robinson. And it says, question 2, can you rank these in priority for the GFFL League? Wando Robinson, Indianapolis Colts, Schrader, Franklin. Yeah, I'd rather probably pick up Franklin before the kicker if I was to swap priority in that circumstance. Thank you. And then also, says Andrew, would you pick up... Okay, yeah, so then that's pretty much like a copy-paste, I believe, of the prior question. It is. And then the next one, Gwen, is Andrew. Would any of the below available on the waivers make it on my team? The star players, okay, are ones I'm considering dropping players for. Okay, so looking at what you have available. Stevenson, yes. Scadaboo, yes. Tootin, yes. Keenan Allen, yes. But are we talking about the GFFL league? Because if that in fact is the case, Gwen, it becomes a little bit of a trickier situation to where, like, you have such a stacked roster here that I don't really make too many of moves. Yeah, I don't really think you even move here because you just have too many good players. Like because there's so many stacked players, I could justify the idea of looking towards dropping someone like Judkins to go get a Keenan Allen because I could justify that, but I don't think it's necessary. You just have too stacked of a team because yeah. So yeah, that could be a move. That way we can go about it. And then also waiver priority Packers and dropping the Ravens and Henderson and Juwan Johnson. Dropping Hendo. Yeah, if it's considering it's a smaller league, I think that's fine. But I don't love it. But again, I know because it's a smaller league, you can get away with it. Thank you. All right. Leap Link AFF sends in a question. Says, I have Dak. Should I trade K9 and Caleb Williams for Kyron? I'd honestly rather have Caleb rest of the season. So can you give away? I mean, look, actually, no, you're not going to give away Dak. But for context sake, let's just say if you don't have Charbonnet, sure. Thank you. Real D-Real sends in a question. Says, drop Caleb Johnson for Blake Corum. Yes, thank you. Jordan Brookins says, in a 12-team full PPR, we have Knicks, we have HN, we have Genty, JSN, Wilson, Hawkinson, ETN, Addison, Chubb, Judy, Likely, Robinson, Shaheed, Ayuk. What do I give up for a tight end like Goddard? Are you trading for Goddard? Is that what you are looking to do? If that's the case, then you're giving up like Judy or Shaheed. That's what you would do. Otherwise, I'm going like if we're talking about dropping a player to pick up Goddard, I drop Likely if I can't stash him on the IR because I have Ayuk there. You know? Thank you. All right, we continue on. We have John Che, who says, looking to trade Scary Terry, who should I go for? If you're going to trade away Terry McLaurin at this current position, you're trading him at his all-time low floor. You're not going to get much in return for him. I don't think you make the trade. If you're going to trade him, again, you're going to have to probably find someone in your league who doesn't know fantasy football very well, and you'd have to take advantage of that point, to which, again, I don't think Scary Terry is someone that if you're playing with sharper players is going to be desired at the moment. So you could move him. You could trade him for DJ Moore because I'm sure they're both at equivalent value at the moment. You can try to go get a Mike Evans, but unless you throw somebody on top of it, I don't think a 1-for-1 is going to be a very feasible expansion at the moment. KB Games sends in a question. KB, let me see what you have here, my man. KB Games says, in a full PPR, I have Jaden Daniels. I have Derrick Henry, James Cook, Egbuka, Hunter, Alec, Iomanner. For the flex, Bills defense, Harrison, Butker. We got to change our kicker. We probably go get another one here. Should I start Worthy when he gets back in week 4? Yes, you should start Worthy in the flex once he comes back, and then probably play him until we need to change him otherwise. Otherwise, right now, in terms of the roster, kicker needs to change. I don't know how many points Butker's been putting up because I don't even pay attention to what Butker really does. I don't think he's been good for fantasy purposes for a couple years now, but I will check just in case. Let's look up Butker. Yeah, Harrison Butker is the number 14 kicker, having put up 9 points per week on average this season. I'd rather have Matt Prater. I'd rather have Joey Sly. I'd rather have Spencer Strader. I'd rather have Parker Romo. I'd make the swap there. Thank you. Okay, Felix Rodriguez says, I dropped Love for Daniel Dimes and got Juwan Johnson. Yeah, perfect. Sounds good to me. What do we do with Chase Brown? Hold him. He's going to be better in due time. Trust. Garrett Wilson for A.J. Brown? Yes, please. All right, guys. In about 2 minutes, we're going to close it out here. I just got to make sure I didn't miss any of the supers there, and then we're good to go. I think we're good in regards to those. Perfect. Okay, guys, I appreciate y'all coming through. That's what we're going to call it. A little bit of a longer Tuesday night stream than normal, but hopefully we can continue to have these kind of long streams in the future. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Again, if you guys are members of the Patreon, I'll go and answer those questions right now so that, of course, prior to your upcoming waivers running tonight, you'll have all the information. Gwen, I'll be able to follow up if you weren't able to hear my answer earlier in regards to those individual questions. I do appreciate y'all taking care of all that and supporting the channel. Again, we are on our way to 100,000 subscribers. Hopefully we can accomplish that this season sooner rather than later. But I do appreciate y'all. Again, like I've mentioned before, I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 wide receiver rankings. And then I'll be, of course, live streaming tomorrow night to talk all things kind of starter sits prior to that Thursday game before we get into the overall mix of Josh Allen and the Bills absolutely decimating that unfortunate Miami Dolphins defense. Either way, I do appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the one and only Double Helix. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.